Good evening, my fellow Americans. This is your President Samuel Ronan speaking, and today is Worldwide Wednesdays. Welcome back. We have plenty to talk about today, and I did make sure this time to look through the list. So when I say it isn't that dystopian, well, I don't know. Just because you read a headline and you see a thumbnail doesn't mean that it won't end up being dystopian. That being said, welcome to the stream. I hope you all had a good day. It's crazy how quickly the time is now changing. It's, 7 o'clock, and it's pitch black outside now. It's crazy how that catches up to you. Welcome to the stream. Hello, Anna. We have a lot to cover today. There seems to be some really good information about Gaza and the return of a little bit of normalcy. But of course, then we have Israel with leaked video about Palestinian torture. We also have the fact that Trump is hosting a Al-Qaeda leader, i.e. the Syria's president, but former leader of Al-Qaeda. And so much more to cover today. There's just a lot of different subjects to cover. There isn't one big major news story. So we're going to get a much better take, I think, than maybe we normally do, where it just focuses on like 2 or 3 major stories. So something to look forward to today. So without further ado, let's jump into it. There we go.
After 2 years of relentless war and destruction, Gaza's classrooms are slowly coming back to life. UNRWA is reopening schools across the shattered strip. For thousands of students, this marks a fragile yet welcome return to learning. But what were once centers of education have become shelters for hundreds of displaced families, as Israel's war wrecked communities in Gaza. Here in Deir el-Balah, displaced families share classrooms with children striving to reclaim their futures.
Again, I said it would be not as dystopian, right, as some of our other streams have been. This is still tragic. I would still 100% label this as tragic. But as we can see, there does seem to be a little bit more life in the Gaza Strip now. Now, of course, this isn't a video about how Israel is continuing to violate the ceasefire. This isn't a video highlighting the cruelties and horrors of Israeli aggression. This is a video highlighting a bit of the reclamation of life that Palestinians are finally able to get in Gaza. So, as much as the devastation and the terror that they are living through, the fact that living space has to be shared with education space, there does seem to be those small vestiges of life, and that matters. That is a victory, even if the actual end to the crime and to the horror that is the genocide against Palestinians isn't complete. The fact that Palestinians survived, the fact that Gaza still has the will to reclaim their livelihoods and to be thriving members of society and to be a part of this thing we call life and on earth, that is a victory that we should cherish.
3 times a week, families vacate these rooms so that students can attend lessons. A delicate balance between survival and education.
We vacated the classrooms to give the children a chance to learn because education is vital. We're prioritising learning and hope that conditions will improve, allowing for better quality of education.
For families, classrooms remain their only refuge. For students, these lessons are the last gateway to a better future. On these floors, Gaza's children have started to learn again, trying to rebuild confidence and trust that education still matters, even when everything else feels uncertain.
I used to study before, but we've been away from school for 2 years. I didn't complete my 2nd and 3rd grades, and now I'm 4th grade, but I feel like I know nothing. Today we bought mattresses instead of desks to sit on and study.
Yet the scale of the losses...
I gotta say, it might not be the same kind of soul crushing that instigates rage, right? When ICE was attacking the father who was going through a seizure, or when the mother was wailing in grief that they were trying to pull her away from her children. Those fill you with immediate flight or fight responses, and in my case, it was fight. But this is no less tragic. I missed my 2nd and 3rd grade. I am now a 4th grader. These past 2 years, I haven't been able to go to school because she was busy surviving a war, a genocide, the wholesale slaughter of everyone she has ever known in her life is what she was struggling with the past 2 years. These children have experienced more warfare, more combat, and more struggle than any soldier in any military on any nation on earth. And the fact that they have the resilience to even attempt to go back to school, to even attempt to do regular things like laundry, hanging and drying off of the banisters, even with makeshift tents and so on and so forth, with one of the few remaining structures in Gaza. That is a strength that so few people possess, and this is an entire people just with their last breath holding on to it. This is both tragic but inspiring. It's inspiring because of the resilience of these people, but tragic because how could you ever expect anyone to survive this or persevere through it? And again, something that really needs to be put out there, and I'll go ahead and hide the Oval Office here for a second. This right here specifically might look like any inner city block with, aside from maybe the tents in there, the military style tents. That's probably not normal, but the apartment building surely is, right? Again, this video doesn't go out of its way to portray the devastation that is on the other side of this building. It did show a little bit about how classrooms are being shared with living space because there is not enough to go around. Why is it okay for Palestinians to suffer like this? Why is it justified for anyone to justify like this when you would never come close to tolerating this for yourself or in your own homes? And again, why is it okay that others may suffer but you may not? Why is it people celebrate the suffering of others but are the first to cry out when they are dealing with less? This human hypocrisy of us versus them, of the haves and the have-nots, of the separation of over there versus here, brown skin versus light skin, Christianity versus Judaism versus Islam. These things do not change the fact that in our DNA, in our blood, is the same genetic code. We are all human beings on this earth, and none of us are going to be able to leave it for anything better, because there is nothing better. This is it. And the more we repeat the failures of our past, war, genocide, famine, starvation, destruction, cruelty, discrimination, the more we emulate these failures of our past, of society, the further and further we get from that utopian future where we all have plenty and we can get off this rock. So to see Palestinians emulate the best of humanity while the entire world cheers on Israeli destruction of Palestinians, you really have to ask yourself, what are we doing? And why are we allowing the worst elements of society to crush the best elements of society? Why are we allowing the worst side of the human race to be elevated above the best elements of the human race? If there's truly an us versus them or a dark versus light, it is clear that the Palestinian people are the light. that they are the right side of history, that they are the way we should aspire to be. Fighting for tomorrow, living for the next day, living for today with our loved ones, and trying to create a society and a life that has meaning with warmth instead of violence and cruelty. Because by rights, the Palestinians should be some of the most bitter, angry, and vicious peoples on earth. They have been genocided. They have been tortured. They are the largest open-air prison on earth. They should be some of the most angry and repressed individuals on earth. They should be savage. They should be foaming at the mouth in fury and rage and agony. And yet, what is the first thing they do? They try to rebuild. They try to rebuild that normalcy for their children. They try to bring back their homes. They try to bring back their loved ones and their communities. Has a single Palestinian raised a fist against the Israeli occupation and genocide since the return? No, they are grateful to be alive and to have the opportunity to rebuild. Now, granted, I wish they would be a little bit angrier, but that just goes to show the kind of people the Palestinians are. They are intrinsically good. And Zionist Israel is intrinsically bad. And all of these countries that back Israel and get in the way of holding them accountable are also intrinsically bad. Simply Steve, the old Dem party is finished after this upcoming vote. None of them are going to get reelected. No, I don't disagree. There is definitely... It's kind of a question of which bell is going to get rung first, right? The end of democracy and elections as we know it, or the Democratic Party and anything resembling opposition. It's tragic because it should not be happening. Exactly. Religion dominates our society. As long as there have been gods, innocent people have suffered in their name. And that is also very true. I don't know why we're constantly rehashing the Crusades. I really don't get it.
Staggering. More than 300,000 honorary students have been deprived of formal education during the past 2 years. And 97% of the agency's school buildings have been damaged or destroyed, leaving a generation with limited access to safe learning spaces.
UNRWA strives to provide face-to-face education through its temporary safe learning spaces for more than 62,000 students in Gaza. We're working to expand these activities across 67 sheltering schools throughout the Strip. Additionally, we continue to provide online learning for 300,000 students in Gaza.
Behind the reopening of the schools lies a deeper crisis. The near collapse of Gaza's educational system and the immense toll of war on its youngest generation. Entire grade levels have vanished from Gaza's academic record. A generation has grown up experiencing war more than expanding knowledge and rubble more than books. For Gaza's children, schools are more than buildings. They are spaces to learn, to grow, and to dream. Coming back to class is not just about lessons. It's a chance to reclaim future, denied them by years of war. طارق أبو عزوم, Al Jazeera, Deir al-Balah, Palestine.
Don't miss out.
Something that they didn't cover in that video, though, which I found a little... I guess because the intent of this video was to be rather positive. How many of those children are officially war orphans? How many of those 62,000 children don't have family? Any adults in their lives whatsoever? And of the teachers teaching, how many of them are actual educational professionals and not just adults that happen to know things? The tragedy of Gaza is not limited to the genocide. It is not limited to the ceasefire and the wholesale destruction of the Gaza Strip. It's not limited even to the suffering of the families that have lost everything. It's the fact that this generation, as they said, are going to have to grow up and survive through some of the most indescribable suffering and pain that any individual human being could possibly go through. And this is an entire people. The entire Gaza Strip is now faced with this dark and bleak future. So for what it is worth, I am in awe of the resilience of the Palestinian people. I truly wish that their suffering comes to an end peacefully, that the ceasefire finally holds and transitions into some sort of two-state solution or something that allows them to live freely and in peace. But the reality is, America is slavering at the maw to develop the Palestinian land, and Israel is just chomping at the bit to give them that opportunity. And the displacement that's going to occur after this, I don't know that any of us are really ready to talk about that. It's not even about money. It's one group of people think they are better just because their religion says they are. Well, you guys are talking about the religious stuff. Okay. Now that we're all sad, but somewhat inspired, but mostly sad, let's work towards getting angry.
The Israeli military's legal chief is in prison and the subject of a legal and political storm. At issue is this leaked video of Israeli soldiers raping a Palestinian detainee from Gaza in the notorious Deit Iman military base. In her resignation letter on Friday, Major General Yifat Tomer Yerushalmi admits she leaked this video to the media in August 2024 to defend the Israeli army's law enforcement authorities. The Israeli Prime Minister...
So wait a second. Did I hear that correctly? She leaked this to prove that Israeli military is doing things the right way? I gotta hear that again.
Admits she leaked this video to the media in August 2024 to defend the Israeli army's law enforcement authority.
So she leaked that video to defend Israeli military's law enforcement authority. How fucking sick is the leadership of Israel? Like, how? That's like saying we committed war crimes and we're proud of it. Come get us. Come get some. Join the military today. You too can commit war crimes. Are you fucking serious? And okay, fine. Now, Israel arrests the lawyer who leaked it, even though the lawyer leaked it on their behalf. Like, to brag. This story.
The Israeli Prime Minister and his coalition partners responded with fury, stripping Yerushalmi of her military ranks and accusing her of spreading blood libel against the Israeli army.
What happened at Deit Iman base caused tremendous damage to Israel's image and that of the Israeli Defense Forces and soldiers. It's perhaps...
So, he's talking about image, not the fact that a war crime occurred, and a heinous one at that.
It's the most serious propaganda attack the state of Israel has faced since its establishment.
So he's denying that what we saw happened, and that it is instead a propaganda attack.
The investigation into the leak is sidestepping the actual rape and other crimes that are happening in Israeli prisons like this one. The UN's Independent Commission of Inquiry says Israel's gender-based and sexual violence against Palestinian detainees is widespread and systematic. This will have implications.
We are barely 20 minutes into this stream, and we went from the resilience of the Palestinian people to Israel not even attempting to hide the fact that they are committing war crimes and crimes against humanity, that they are violating prisoners of war who are just civilians, mind you, that have, again, had their due process violated for simply existing. Israel's take is that it's all just propaganda and blood libel. Not even attempting to hold their people accountable. No. And it's widespread. There is evidence of it. There is bragging about it. In fact, the person who leaked it was sharing it to show, yep, this is what we're doing, and we're proud. Like this, again, how is Israel not being held accountable? How? How is this not happening? How is the world seeing and hearing this and doing nothing? And well, the answer is because only 300,000 people are watching this. Globally, presumably. And none of them apparently have positions of power or authority in European or American government to sway what do I want to say here? Stray the consensus that Israel is unequivocally the bad guys. Unequivocally the bad guys. Yeah, that woman is pure evil to the core. As sad, a shameful example of humanity. She should be wearing an SS uniform. I mean, did you not see these uniforms? They're not exactly, those shields. I mean, look at the shields. Look at the X's. It's even the rotated cross. You know what it's missing? The bends. Those, oh my, I didn't realize that at first. The only thing missing here is the lines. And there's your swastika. Israeli iconography on their military are using damn near swastika symbolism. You can't make this up. I wouldn't want to make this up.
Of inquiry says Israel's gender-based and sexual violence against Palestinian detainees is widespread and systematic. This will have implications on the ongoing war crimes investigation conducted by the ICC and the genocide case against Israel at the International Court of Justice.
This is very powerful example about the failure of the Israeli justice system when it comes for the grave violations and the serious crimes that the Palestinian prisoners face in the Israeli system.
Ironically, Yerushalmi was already criticized for shying away from opening investigations into other serious incidents for fear of facing the wrath of Israel's right wing. Hesitation that served Israel's impunity, but did not protect Israel's image or the military advocate general's job. Nooradi Al Jazeera, Ramallah, Palestine.
Don't miss.
Calling Trump a hypocrite, calling conservatives evil, calling Israel evil, calling Zionism one of the greatest threats to humanity. That's like calling water wet. I get it. I truly, but it's not like we watch these videos over the past 2 years and they start to not be so evil and cruel, right? It's not as if there was a peak somewhere in the past 2 years and now it's on the decline and now they're acting like a country again, right? The veneer of a country. And instead, Israel continues to escalate its cruelty and malevolence against the Palestinian people. It just gets worse and worse and worse every single day, every single week. And it's not even biased reporting. In fact, most reporting about Israel, even that's against Israel, is still tame. Most of it is still tame. And yet, what is being revealed about Israel and the soldiers and the government and the judiciary is only increasing in their malevolence and their cruelty and their terrorism of the Palestinian people. It doesn't seem as though they have even hit their limit. And honestly, I shudder to think what Israel would do if there hadn't been any public outrage, if there was just a media blackout about it. Which, given how generous the West has been towards Israel, it's kind of shocking there hasn't been a media blackout just to give Israel free rein on its activities. But I guess that was the blunder on Israel's part by trying to make propaganda out of the October 7th attack. And then making that a big show of force and action. Otherwise, the world probably wouldn't have known. The world probably wouldn't have cared. But instead, we have 2 years of live stream 4K genocide. And despite that horrific sentence being stated, from October 7th to the present, Israel's actions have only gotten worse and more cruel. I don't know how even the propaganda that exists is enough to cover up that fact, that truth. I don't understand how blind you have to be to what is in front of you, what you are seeing and hearing with your own eyes and ears, to ignore that completely and be like, nope, we're still sticking with them. I don't get it. Okay.
Now, Israel's President Isaac Herzog has confirmed.
Trump asks Israeli president to pardon Netanyahu. I'm a little confused. Is Netanyahu not the president of Israel? Am I missing something? Oh, I guess I am missing something. So, Isaac Herzog is the president. Okay. So, is Netanyahu the prime minister then? Prime minister. And I guess those are two... See, that's confusing to me. When countries have a prime minister and a president, that's just confusing as hell. Just stick to one and call... Okay, so if the president deals with domestic affairs and the prime minister deals with foreign affairs or vice versa, then call it that. You have the president and the foreign affairs minister. Like, why do you have to call it prime minister and then president? That is really confusing. Okay, but that makes sense now.
Receiving a letter from US President Donald Trump calling on him to pardon Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. President Trump described the legal proceedings against Netanyahu as, quote, a political unjustified prosecution. Well, for more on this, let's speak to Noah Ode, who's in Ramallah in the occupied West Bank. Noah, this isn't the first time Trump has waded into Israeli politics and its judicial system. I mean, he suggested several times he wants the charges against Netanyahu to be dropped. I mean, previously calling the corruption case a witch hunt. But how is all of this latest interference being seen?
Yeah, I mean, Donald Trump even mentioned that when he was addressing the Knesset after the ceasefire agreement was reached. This is seen as extremely controversial in Israel, not just because it's a direct intervention in the domestic politics in an ongoing case in Israeli courts, but also because it is very difficult to go against the wishes of Donald Trump. So everybody is in a bit of a...
No. Absolutely fucking not. Why? Why is everyone saying it's difficult to stand up to Trump? You are a foreign country, an illegal colonizing occupation country, but a recognized country nevertheless. Who the hell cares what the President of the United States says in your judicial process? Oh, because America is Israel's greatest ally, and without their support, you don't get $3 billion, $20 billion a year in weapons. Okay. But for that to be enough to influence a criminal court case, and a necessary one, clearly, it is shocking to me. And also, what's Trump going to do? Not support Israel? He would lose, apparently, all of his base overnight. Because apparently Zionism has the entire political whatever in such a tizzy that even if Israel stood up to Trump and did the opposite of what he wanted, if Trump actually acted on it, he would be a pariah overnight, which is crazy because how is it more detrimental to your political image to be against a genocidal colonizing nation than to literally stand against a genocidal colonizing nation? How is that detrimental? And does that mean if I get elected into Congress this coming election cycle, and one of the first things I do is put my middle finger in BB's face, am I going to get assassinated? Because we already know that I'm not going to be on any of the major committees, and they're not going to let me speak on the floor for very long. We know that. So when I also stick my nose up to the Israelis, what, am I just going to not be able to get into my car for fear of a car bomb? Like, and what influence? What are you going to do to, like, okay, so I piss off Donald Trump. Great. What's he going to do? Make my life miserable? How? What is he personally going to do? What? He's going to buy my house illegally out from under me by deliberately buying my mortgage out from under me and then evicting me from my own house? Okay. Well, I mean, what can this piece of garbage actually do to a senator, to a congressman, that wouldn't be blatantly criminal? Oh, we're going to make it harder for you. We're going to primary you. You were going to do that anyway, right? You're already ramping up your rhetoric against my beliefs and values and in my district. So how is that literally any different? I'm going to be dealing with the same political rivalry regardless. Making an enemy of Trump is like saying I made an enemy of Elon Musk. Unless I am also a billionaire with a multi-billion-dollar industry that's in danger of being aggressively bought out by Musk's holdings, I have literally nothing to fear from that man. Other than if they do like the criminal thing, sending assassins at me, which is illegal. It's a crime. So what? I have to be afraid for my life? Is that what you're telling me? Is that the fear? Is that the thing that you have to be wary of? Because they can't make me do anything. They can't stop me from doing anything. The only thing they can do is threaten me and harm me. And guess what? If I'm dead, it's no longer my problem. So I do not understand how these people in the news, Al Jazeera, CNBC, these senators, standing up to Trump didn't work. How? In what universe does that not work? What is he going to do to you? He can't prevent you from voting. He can't prevent you from traveling. He can't prevent you from getting into the Senate office or building. He can't prevent you from holding a press conference or going and holding town halls in your district. He cannot stop you from being an elected official. He just can't. He can't remove you from office either, because if he could have, he would have. So, what is this fear of Donald Trump? Literally, I am so confused. What is there to be afraid of? Other than the fact that he may very well try and send an assassin after you. That's it. Oh no, I'm gonna get shot at or possibly die. That sucks. You're so much of a fucking coward that your own skin is worth more to you than the 330 million Americans that you represent? Well, technically they represent their state or their district. Okay, sure. Your skin is worth more than your state or your district? That's pathetic. You shouldn't be in politics then. And the fact that somebody is in a position of power and authority to threaten you in the first place and aren't being held accountable should deepen your resolve to stand up against them in the first place and demand accountability. I fear for my life by going up against the Trump administration's policies and agenda. I am afraid for my life to go up against the Israeli agenda because going against these agendas is antithetical to their success and the power brokers that are facilitating it. I am in fear for my life. Great. You know what you've just done? You know what you've accomplished? You have made yourself a living martyr. Now, if anything happens to you, that is a public upheaval. Aha! He was right. He did have to fear for his life. Investigate these two. And all of a sudden, you have a polar shift in society. Now that, ladies and gentlemen, they, thems of all ages, that is called having a spine, standing on principle, and inspiring a people. And yet, not a single one in our country, and well, I mean, at any level of government, is inspiring people in this way. Zoran Mamdani is not inspiring people in any way. He is, people that are socialist and communist are doing a victory lap, but is he inspiring a nation? No, he's not. We need inspiration, and that inspiration is as simple as standing up without fear or regret against some of the most vile human beings on planet Earth. And I don't think that is a very high bar to climb or cross. I don't see where these statements are coming from.
Pickle right now. It's going to be very difficult to confront this formal request sent to the Israeli president. Having said that, it's important to note that under Israeli law, in order for the president to issue a pardon, the person in question must admit guilt and express remorse. So it's going to be interesting to see whether Netanyahu himself is willing to do that, having fought all those allegations of corruption, and there are several of them, for so many years.
Yeah, when Donald Trump was at the Knesset last month, he said something like it's only champagne and cigars, didn't he? Remind us of the Graf case against Netanyahu. There have, of course, been multiple delays to the hearings. Are we any nearer to a conclusion?
Sorry, I had a very late day at work, so I didn't actually get to eat dinner. I apologize. I wanted to address that, though. When we were looking at the pardon in America, an executive may pardon and thus relieve a wrongdoer from the punishment the public exacts for the wrong, but neither executive or legislature can pardon a private wrong or relieve the wrongdoer from civil liability to the individual he has wronged. And further up here, he may require the opinion. Hold on, where was it? Grant reprieves and pardons for offenses against the United States except in cases of impeachment. Where was the stupid where a full pardon granted by the president and accepted by its subject prevents or removes any of the penalties and consequent upon conviction? Where was the thing where they didn't, all they had to do, that's brandishing. Where was this? What? Damn it. I didn't keep the correct link. That sucks. So the pardon power is broad and we have no precedent because there are reasonable arguments on either side. Courts could go either way on this. And this looks like it's an interview. We covered it yesterday, though. And the pardon in America is... it doesn't even have to have guilt. They had to have committed an act. That is a ridiculously low threshold. You had to do something in order to be eligible for pardon. In Israel, they actually have a threshold of guilt and remorse, which that would be crazy if what's his face? Isaac was like, sure, I'll do that. Gets Netanyahu to admit it on live television that he did all these things and that he's remorseful, and then says, oh, no, you just admitted it, and now you're going straight to The Hague. That would be chef's kiss. But I'm pretty certain Isaac Herzog is not a good person, and I'm fairly certain is just as Zionist as Netanyahu. So if that would happen, doubtful.
Conclusion.
Well, there are several cases that have to do with breach of trust, with using the office or the influence of the office. It's not just about receiving gifts. It's about also influencing the media and being, involved in side deals to affect the coverage concerning Netanyahu himself. So there are several cases. There are also cases related to transactions, very large transactions, multi-million-dollar transactions where Netanyahu was accused of being involved, of benefiting, of giving favors to his friends. So he's been fighting this for many, many years. Netanyahu has been accused of even prolonging this genocidal war in order to evade evade accountability in the courts. He's been dodging many of the hearings in the court under various pretexts, including emergent security considerations, emergent security developments, and so on. Every time there's a hearing in one of those corruption charges, the media almost immediately, automatically assumes and asks in the morning, what will Netanyahu do today to shorten the hearing?
All right, Noah, many thanks. As always, Noah.
Speaking of the corruption, I mean, this is essentially what Trump and the Supreme Court spent the first couple of months of the presidency doing, of ensuring that the president cannot be held accountable. Right? Literally. They literally passed in the Supreme Court that the president cannot be held criminally accountable for their actions while serving as president. What? How is this any different? It's just different steps. It's the same thing, different steps. Oh my goodness. I guess when you're corrupt and you have no qualms about violating the law and using money and influence and power to undermine everything, and you have a bunch of corrupt people in every position to support and aid and abet you, I guess you can get away with everything, including genocide. Outstanding.
Israel's military says it's reopened a crossing into northern Gaza to allow in aid trucks. It's the first time the Zikkim crossing has been opened since the ceasefire came into effect more than a month ago. Aid convoys to Gaza have been facing major delays despite the promise of deliveries being made daily. Under the truce between Hamas and Israel, a minimum of 600 trucks a day should be entering the Strip. But on average, Israeli authorities are only allowing 178, and most of them are commercial. The UN says Israel's blocking vital items, including syringes for vaccines, as well as bottles for powdered baby milk. Members of Hamas's armed wing, the Qassam Brigades, and the Red Cross are preparing to search for the bodies of remaining captives held in Gaza. The joint operation will take place inside the so-called Yellow Line that's under Israeli military control. Hamas is yet to return the bodies of 5 more captives, as agreed under the first phase of the ceasefire deal.
Because they are buried under fucking rubble that only exists because Israel used so much ordnance against civilians in civilian populations that it turned civilian centers that are like downtown Columbus or downtown wherever the hell you live into rubble. That is why they couldn't return these bodies, and they're probably still not going to be able to return the bodies because how are you going to tell which body or hand or limb belongs to the captive? Like, how are you supposed to keep track of where you got massacred when there aren't even landmarks anymore to reference? Again, this is why the ceasefire was never an altruistic ceasefire in the first place. It was an excuse for Israel to prolong the war, to prolong the violence against Palestinians, and use it as justification, be like, see, look, they're not honoring their end, why should we?
Tarek Abu zooms in Deir al-Balah for us to look into all of this in more detail. So Tarek, Israel, as I mentioned there, says it's reopening the Zikkim crossing in northern Gaza more than a month after the ceasefire was initiated. And it's a part of Gaza where the UN panel that's been looking into all of this says that famine is taking hold. Firstly, is there any evidence of the crossing opening, or what difference would it make?
Well, we've got reports from the Israeli side about their decision to reopen Zikkim crossing in the far north of the Strip, and it's the first time that we can see that this crossing has been reopened again since the implementation of the ceasefire deal that was brokered on the 10th of October. And it's very essential to highlight this fact for our viewers that this crossing was mainly set up during this genocide on Gaza, where it was responsible for trickling 8 trucks into the Strip, and in particular for the most impacted and devastated areas in northern Gaza.
Well, at the very least, they are talking about genocide now more often. This is, I think, one of the few videos, and it's only been recently, where even Al Jazeera has been talking about what's happening in Gaza as a genocide. So,
and for Gaza
I'll take our wins.
City as well, but later it was shot down by the Israeli military under security pretext to now be reopened again. So in total, we have 3 operational crossing borders, with border crossings with Gaza that are responsible of delivering aid: Zakim crossing in the north, Kusufim in the central area, and Karm Abu Salam in the far south of the Strip, while Rafah border crossings remain sealed, as UN agencies are still calling for a scaled-up delivery of humanitarian supplies to alleviate the famine.
I remember when we were talking about Rafah was where all of the Gazans were going to resettle. I remember when it then turned into Rafah was being attacked. And I remember when we were talking about Rafah has finally fallen and there was no place for Gazans to go. I remember talking about Rafah having aid trucks right outside its border. Right outside. You could see it with your own eyes. And they would still be denied. I remember talking about all of these things concerning Rafah. And today, Rafah is still the epicenter of refusal to bring aid to the Palestinian people that are the ongoing victims of genocide by Israel, who controls these crossings and are denying supplies to these victims of genocide that they turned into victims. Like, Israel is literally denying the aid that is necessary because of the violence they inflicted upon Palestinians, to perpetuate the violence that they inflicted upon Palestinians.
Repercussions and the humanitarian crisis here.
And Tariq, tell us more about the efforts to retrieve the 5 remaining captives' bodies. I understand the search will now take place within Israel's area of control, so east of the so-called Yellow Line.
Yeah, we have got reports earlier this morning that members of Al-Qassam brigades along with ICRC teams have been given the green light to move into the yellow demarcation line, specifically in areas that are under the Israeli military control. Israel allowed for this in order to accelerate the process of retrieving the bodies of the remaining Israeli captives inside these areas. These Israeli captives are believed to be killed as a result of Israeli airstrikes, either on the underground tunnels or inside the houses that they were kept inside, where it's very essential to mention that the vast majority of areas that are under the Israeli control have been devastated and decimated to the ground as a result of Israel's demolition operations and the heavy bombing campaign.
And that's the thing, right? Israel not only bombed and attacked civilian centers, which is a war crime. It's unequivocally a war crime. They also then bulldozed over everything and are, again, not at all remorseful about it. They're not denying it. They're bragging about it. They're using it to talk about, hey, buy land in Palestine, build your own new house. Like, it's egregious just how terrible this entire situation is. And again, if these places were bulldozed, then how are you even certain you're going to be able to find the bodies in the first place? Because the rubble and the dirt might have already bulldozed over where those bodies were. Like, that's how? Again, it's trying to create an impossible set of circumstances that is unattainable so that they can be justified in their continued aggression. And actually, I guess that's the end of the video. So, yeah, I don't know what else to say. Let's try and, none of these next 3 videos are that great at either. So let's stay in the Middle
Anxious
East
parents
for a
wait
little
for
bit.
news. Inside the hospital, wards are full. Every child here fighting to survive. Doctors say cases of severe malnutrition are rising fast. Many of these babies are the face of Afghanistan's deepening crisis. Children born into poverty, hunger, and a collapsing healthcare system. 7-month-old Omar has been in the hospital for 2 weeks. His mother Samira says they came because they had no other choice.
My husband cooks street food on a cart. Our financial state is weak. That's why we came here. He got sick when he was 7 months old. The doctors say he's getting better now.
Doctors say the causes are clear. A collapsing economy, natural disasters, and the mass return of refugees have left millions of people unable to feed their families.
The basic reason for the malnutrition is a bad economy, natural disasters, and the population influx, including refugees. Unless we treat them properly, this problem will continue.
Cuts to international aid have made things worse. Health programs have scaled down, leaving hospitals like this one overwhelmed.
Organisations such as UNICEF and the WHO have reduced their operations.
UNICEF and NWHO. There have been economic pullbacks from Afghanistan during these different crises, allowing Afghanistan to collapse again for what, the 5th time in the past 30 years? When, again, Afghanistan, let's see, Afghanistan, 1970. Here's Afghanistan in the 1970s. Looks like a pretty thriving country to me. Groovy even. See? It's got the Groove Mobile. And, yeah, you have some, well, that's modern burqas. And look, that looks like downtown. Downtown. Well, no, that's a little bit, that's during the modern times. But it's like 1970s Afghanistan was a hopping place. And now, after decades of Western intervention, the country's on the verge of collapse for the umpteenth time. And that's actually not being discussed in this video. Like, this is part of the video where you should say, the refugees are coming from this country and that country. The United Nations is the one that pulled back, and it was because of the problems created by the global war on terror for 20 years that destabilized Afghanistan in the first place. And then we also have installed a bunch of religious zealots in those countries because it was politically advantageous for the U.S. and the West. Right. It's just, we cannot stop harming other countries for our own perceived gains.
I call on them to separate politics from health. This is a child's right. We need their help. Sometimes we have 40 patients for 20 beds. The number of malnutrition cases is increasing every day.
Across the country, it's a similar story. International agencies say they're running out of funds as needs are rising.
Well, this year in Afghanistan, we've seen the highest surge in child malnutrition ever recorded in the country, and the lives of 3 million children.
Which is crazy considering there was a whole ass war and invasion with the United States talking about how Al-Qaeda was murdering, raping, and pillaging and plundering all of Afghanistan. If this is the worst that they've ever experienced, then clearly somebody was lying.
Children are in peril. Mothers who may walk 4 to 5 hours to bring their child to the clinic in their arms, walking across mountainous terrain. They arrive at the clinic and they're told, "I'm sorry, there's been aid cuts. We cannot feed your child."
Alif says repeated droughts and earthquakes have worsened hunger, but without funding, there's little the World Food Programme can do.
And sure, don't get me wrong, it's not all fire and brimstone. Like, Afghanistan has also been hit with some actual, honest-to-God natural disasters. But the fact that the world is just turning their backs on Afghanistan, like, sucks, sorry, we're out of money, and the only opportunities left to you are the goodwill of these institutions. Good luck. Like, how is that? I struggle to understand this. To me, it is no different than what Israel is doing to Palestine. They're doing it deliberately. Well, so is withholding funds. So is not offering support and aid to Afghanistan in their hour of need. How is that not a manufacturing a genocide against a whole people? Well, we can't save everybody. Bullshit. We actually can save everybody. We produce enough food to feed 20% more of the population than we actually have. We could end all world hunger, lack of electricity, running water, everything. We could put an end to all of this. We have the technology. We have the resources and the infrastructure. And we literally choose not to.
Winter is coming. Winter is a flashpoint for hunger. Winter is when hunger is at its peak, and we usually see a peak in child mortality. This year, without an international response, without international food assistance, the situation is going to be devastating.
All right. They're going to end this video with screaming, crying children, and we don't need to be more depressed. And honestly, quite a few of these videos... Oh no, I guess we can watch one more depressing video, and then it's just crime. It's just crime and politics.
The UN's migration agency is warning humanitarian operations in Sudan's North Darfur region have been pushed to the brinks of collapse. Nearly 90,000 people have fled the region's capital El Fasher since it was seized late last month by the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces that's reported to have carried out widespread atrocities in the city.
So I wonder... Okay. So they are nowhere close to each other. But I was kind of curious to see if... how close these two countries might have been to each other, to see if that might have been part of the immigration crisis. So theoretically it's possible, though, because Sudan is right there at the top end of Africa, and Afghanistan is really close. So Saudi Arabia. All right, we'll duplicate this real quick. Would help if I could spell. So, okay, so it's closer to India than it is to Africa. But it is, I mean, I would still argue that it is possible for refugees to cross all this land. Maybe not ideal, per se, right? Going from here to there, but I mean, where's all the other refugees coming from? I mean, then again, that's India right down here. And India and Pakistan have been going at it. So, yeah, I guess it is possible that refugees from other neighboring countries, maybe not the Sudan, but certainly other Middle Eastern and Central Asian countries for sure.
Many of those fleeing the violence are arriving in already overcrowded displacement camps in nearby Tawila. Facilities are overwhelmed, and people have little access to food, shelter, and medical supplies. Nearly 39,000 people have also fled violence in the neighboring North Kordofan region. That's since late October. The UN says during more than 2 years of war in Sudan, at least 40,000 people have been killed and 12 million forced from their homes.
This just goes to show that we probably can and should have been covering the war in Sudan as well, but it has been eclipsed by the genocide in Palestine. And these numbers are the same reported numbers of Palestinians, right? There's only been 40 to 60,000 killed Palestinians, although exponentially more people have been displaced in the Sudan. And it's crazy because these conflicts are happening simultaneously across the same time frame on Earth. Like, we're literally living in America right now, or maybe some of you guys are from Europe. I know we like to have the Netherlands here quite a bit. We're just watching this from the comfort of our homes without a care in the world, knowing full well there is no chance of war reaching our borders or our lands. Meanwhile, the rest of the world, continents across like spanning continents, is dealing with conflicts. Actual live ammunition, military conflict, where you're just going to work, going to school, getting groceries, and there's a chance that you get hit by a rocket, a tank shell, a mortar, a drone strike, or an invading militia. This is not okay. This is not the way things should be. And the fact that this is the norm for a apparently much not insignificant portion of the human population is disturbing. Considering America is like, you know what, we don't have a war to worry about on our own soil, so let's manufacture something similar by invading our own major cities and terrorizing brown people. It is not good. These are not healthy times.
Aid groups say that the actual death toll could be many times higher. Well, Amy Pope joins us now. You're the Director General of the International Organization for Migration. You're joining us from Khartoum. Thank you for your time. So the IOM's statement says that, quote, humanitarian operations in Sudan are now on the brink of collapse. What happens if there's no sudden improvement?
Well, we're seeing it play out already. As you've noticed, there have been as many as 90,000 coming out of Darfur. When we look at the total displacement over the last 2 weeks, the number's been 150,000. But then you look at the scale of the response. We primarily work to provide safe shelter to people, hygiene kits, things just for basic sustenance. And the funding, the resources that we have at this moment in time are less than 8% of the need. So we'll see more people suffer. We'll see more people go without even just basic housing, basic support, the kinds of things that people need to continue living.
I wasn't aware of this number. You're saying the funding that you have available for this mission is less than 8% of what you need. How did we get to that?
Well, primarily because Darfur, the situation here in Sudan has remained fairly hidden from the public view. We're seeing this is the largest displacement crisis in the world. We've had more than 10 million people who've been displaced from their homes. Some have been displaced time and time again, yet it just doesn't receive the kind of attention that it deserves, given what's happening here. In addition, the humanitarian system has...
Which is exactly what I was saying a few moments ago. I was largely unaware about this crisis being going on for 2 years. I know we've been covering it the past few weeks, maybe the past couple of months, but this has been going on for 2 years. We are a political junkie channel actively talking about foreign events, foreign affairs, foreign policies, and politics, and even we were not fully aware of the extent that this was happening. So, of course, the rest of the world wouldn't even know. And that's, again, it's crazy because as much as Israel was using Palestinian genocide as propaganda for itself, that at least put the lens on Palestine and gave the world an opportunity to form an opinion on it. I don't know that there is any reporting on the Sudan by any mainstream network from the Western media. So that's true. It is true that it is just not being talked about, that it is less known, and it's a shame and a crisis. It is literally contributing to this crisis that is already out of hand, that is already beyond the pale. All because people simply don't know about it, and the countries, of course, do. Of course, the national leaders do, but they just can't be bothered. They just can't be bothered.
As a whole has been hit by pretty significant funding cuts, which means that the money that's available to respond to people all over the world is insufficient and is just not getting to the people, all the people who need it.
90,000 people are estimated to have fled El Fasher since the RSF took over there 2 weeks ago, and they were fleeing massacres. You spoke to some of those people. That's part of what you're in Khartoum for. What did you learn?
I heard really horrific stories you won't be surprised to hear. I was in a displaced persons camp just yesterday in Al-Afad. What I heard were mostly women and their children. Over 90% of the people who've been arriving are women and children. Speak about escaping with very, very little to carry, having to bring along children. Many could not make it. Many died along the way. They spoke about seeing dead bodies as they walked. They spoke about having to create makeshift trenches to avoid being shot at or being harmed by the drones. They spoke of unspeakable, unbearable sexual trauma, sexual abuse. The stories are really harrowing, and they're happening now even as we speak.
What about the people who were not able to?
You know, it's even more frustrating to know that this channel right here is probably doing more to promote this story and to bring awareness of this story to Western audiences than literally the entire mainstream media combined. And we have 241 followers as of this moment. Like, how absolutely distressing is that fact? And of course, America is responsible for part of the funding that got slashed here. That was one of the first things to go out of the federal budget by Elon Musk, who is an African. Slashed aid programs like this or similar to this, which could have been helped and useful to prevent the devastation that is happening, or at least mitigate some of it. We are directly responsible for what's going on, and yet you could probably ask any random American about what's going on in the Sudan, and they wouldn't even know it's a country. So, distressing to say the least.
Flee and who are still in El Fasher. We're talking about tens of thousands of people. Do you have an understanding of what they're going through?
Well, the primary concern is getting access to those communities so that they can be provided with some level of life-saving support. And there, the issue is primarily one of access. When humanitarian actors are themselves at risk, when they're killed, when they're shot, when they're detained, we can't get the people what they need to survive. And even we at IOM have seen the same thing happen with some of our team members who have lost their lives, who have been harmed as they've tried to provide aid to people. So that's the primary issue, is ensuring that there is a ceasefire, a humanitarian corridor, so that aid groups can bring in that aid to the civilians who are very much caught in the middle.
Yeah, access.
Something that I don't think is often understood either is that these aid groups they have to be, they are obligated, they are mandated by international law to be unarmed, to be a non-military, non-armed entity. They can't, I think they are allowed to hire mercenary groups to protect them. I think they are allowed to do that. But the groups themselves, the IOM, the USAID, all those other groups, are literally not allowed to be armed. And they are volunteers, like you, like me, college kids, often or as not, who are volunteering, maybe some of them are getting paid, but not well, to go into these actual war-torn areas with some of the most brutal, violent militias on Earth without so much as a flak vest to protect them, and are trying to deliver aid. Again, I don't understand how the heroism of these aid groups is not elevated to higher levels than soldiers in combat. Like, you want to give somebody a bronze star or a silver star or a cross for valor, or hell, Purple Hearts, or even the Medal of Honor? These aid workers are infinitely more deserving because they are going into hostile territory without any means of defending themselves by mandate, and are choosing to go anyway. If that's not heroism, if that's not valor, I clearly don't know what is.
Access to the people who need the help is always really the main game in humanitarian settings, and typically big.
And look, even this video on Al Jazeera, 3,000 total views. Granted, in 8 hours, but that's 3,000 total views. 3,000 on something that's been going on for 2 years, on something that is a growing crisis. People that are going out of their way to find this video, and we are amongst them.
Organizations such as yours, organizations that have clout, they try to negotiate access, including to conflict zones, so that they can reach those people. Are you able to do?
Which is what I was saying about the mercenaries and such.
Do that in this case? It sounds like it's not possible.
It's very, very complicated, and it's definitely not at the level that we all need. Now, over the next couple of months, my partners and other humanitarian organizations will all be making trips here to draw attention to it, to bring the necessary engagement to get that access. But without it, people will die, people will suffer, people will go homeless.
The IOM has urged donors, partners, and the international community to act now to prevent further loss of life. Those are the words in the statement that the International Organization for Migration put out. What does acting now look like?
Well, first and foremost, we have to recognize that without peace, any humanitarian aid is simply going to be a Band-Aid. Ultimately, the political engagement, the diplomatic pressure, the engagement from partners all over the world is essential. And that means bringing awareness to the conflict and helping people to really understand that what's happening here in Sudan impacts the region, impacts stability. We're already seeing, for example, Sudanese who are fleeing to Chad, who are fleeing to Libya, and to Egypt, of course. So this is a regional issue that requires more sustained diplomatic and political engagement to get peace. Then, of course, it means while that peace is being negotiated, it's critical that we have the life-saving humanitarian support for those who are caught in the middle. And so some of that's about the resources. Some of that is about ensuring that we have access to communities in need. None of that happens without more sustained engagement and attention from the public, from viewers, from governments.
Amy Pope, Director General of the International Organization for Migration.
Yeah, that child who's clearly having some sort of necropsy on his mouth. Are you kidding me? Like, criminy. Honestly, I know it sounds like I'm willing to raise the flag for every single social injustice that's happening across the globe, and I want to make it my problem. But here's the thing. It kind of is our problem. We, the United States of America, the American people, are quite directly responsible for the destabilization of Afghanistan, its infrastructure, its politics, its society, of Sudan, its politics, its infrastructure, its society. We are directly responsible, implicitly responsible, for the genocide of Palestinians. And aiding and abetting Israel and committing them. We are literally, pick a conflict that is happening right now in the world, even if it has nothing to do directly with the United States, like India and Pakistan. To some degree, India and Pakistan used to be the one country, and then it got split after the British pulled out, and with its own propaganda mess that was there too. And has America been helping the trade relations or the diplomatic relations in that region? No. So the United States of America, although not responsible for all the ills of the world, are absolutely responsible for a lot of them. And as president, I can and should be able to address all of them, or as many of them as I can at once. There is such thing as spreading your resources too thin, even in America. But the point that I'm trying to make is, I know I might be losing audiences. I know I might be losing viewership because we cover a lot of things that people don't know about or don't care about. But that's the difference between leadership and being a politician. If I wanted to just be a politician and guarantee that I get elected, as long as I just get elected and just throw away my morals and my ethics and my values, all I have to do is grift. That's it. That is literally the only thing I have to do. All I have to do is just... I thought I had a megaphone or something here. All I have to do is go as loud as possible. Do I not have a microphone? Thought I did have a microphone. Sorry, I'm getting distracted. Well, I did have a microphone somewhere around here. I guess I lost it. Doesn't matter. All I would have to do is sing Mamdani's praises. Or since I'm in a Republican district, all I'd have to do is be MAGA light, right? And just be done with it. But that's not going to affect change. And if I win through that lie, I am going to lose the support of the people that I've earned because of the lie. That's still a betrayal. Even if I start doing things way better than I promised they were going to be, right? It's still a betrayal of those initial expectations. So if we can't do this thing the right way the first time, then we're going to struggle and we're going to fail. And what's happening is going to continue to happen. And I find it frustrating to see so many grifters, and I'm not calling Mamdani a grifter, but I'm saying there are grifters that are continuously elevating their platforms and using that platform after it's been developed to just continue the grift. Even if they started off grifting for the sake of what I just explained, of getting the platform or getting the position so that they can do the job that they've always claimed they wanted to do, then they end up capitulating to the grift. And we can't have that. We just cannot have that. You need to stand for something, and you need to show the people that you do, in fact, stand for it. So, that just to explain why we are covering things that are probably not entertaining nor necessarily enjoyable to watch. In fact, most of it is soul-crushing. So, instead of soul-crushing, we do have some other content.
This is the moment
Crypto
police break
schemes.
into the home of Chinese national Jimin Qian.
I see police are universal.
Police! She's the mastermind behind the biggest...
Hold on. Why are Chinese law enforcement speaking English? Okay.
Money laundering...
Oh, wait. UK. Never mind. Sorry.
...in British history, and earned herself 11 and a half years behind bars.
Okay. We believe you're Jimin Qian. Okay. You're under arrest. You're going to be arrested for money laundering.
They're arresting her on suspicion of laundering billions of pounds in stolen assets. But to understand how she got here, we need to go back to 2014.
Hold on. She laundered billions of dollars of cryptocurrency and basically lived in one of the crappiest apartments money could buy? She's clear. I don't believe that she did $5.5 billion worth then, because wouldn't she be living a much more lavish lifestyle?
Back then, Qian set up a so-called investment firm called Lantian Gurai, or Blue Sky in English. It claimed to be developing high-end health products and to be mining cryptocurrency, with promised returns of up to 300% for its...
That actually sounds very familiar. Wow. That's what I thought this was. That's what I was thinking of, at any rate. So this is a social media app, not the health insurance thing that they're talking about. Okay, that's why I was confused. All right.
Investors. Qian held flashy conferences and grand banquets to lure in her victims. That included one event at the Great Hall of the People where Chinese politicians meet. She even commissioned a promotional video.
She even duped the Communist Chinese Party? That's impressive.
Video advertising a luxury life in London for its investors. The video promoted a wealth management service called Britain Nice Life. It described the UK as the best private butler base, and even has an eagle flying over a mountain range to the sound of dramatic music. And it showcased all of England's classic landmarks like Windsor Castle, St Paul's Cathedral, and the Old Reading Church. But despite the cheesy promo, Chien was incredibly effective. The serial fraudster managed to convince 128,000 people, including thousands of pensioners, to hand over their life savings. But in 2017, wanted by Chinese authorities, Chien took the money and fled to Europe. She invested the money in cryptocurrency, now worth a staggering £5.5 billion. She used it to fund a luxurious lifestyle, travelling Europe using a fake passport, staying at the best hotels, and buying designer jewellery. Her expensive tastes even earned her the nickname the Goddess of Wealth. And this crypto queen, as she was also called, had a detailed 6-year plan laying out her ambitions for a new life in Europe. That included becoming the Queen of Lieberland, an unrecognised microstate consisting mostly of barren wetland on the Croatian-Serbian border. Later in 2017, Chien set her sights on England. She landed in Heathrow with a fake passport and rented a £17,000 per month mansion in Hampstead. Police raided the property in 2018 after her younger female assistant attempted to buy a £24 million home in London. That assistant, Jian Wen, was later jailed for 6 years for her part in laundering the money and ordered to pay back over £3 million. Prosecutors described how she acted as a...
I gotta hand it to this video and this guy. There is no point in time in this video where I could even fathom what was going to happen next. No point in time was I following along and like, oh, okay, so she did this and now this is the consequence. Like, what? She laundered this money into crypto. It ballooned. She then took that money, lived a lavish lifestyle, got her assistant, paid her assistant quite well, which is also usually unheard of in those kind of criminal elements, and then is they're just dropping like flies until she's in this shitty apartment getting raided by the police. This is insane. This is like a movie. This is a Netflix original movie in 5 or 10 years.
Front person, helping to secure luxury properties for her employer while disguising the true source of her fortune. Investigators found over £300,000 in cash and cheques at Chien's Hampstead home, and even a treasure map showing directions from a Harrods department store to a nearby safety deposit box. There they found devices containing the digital...
Again, a treasure map to a safety deposit box. That was not on my bingo list for this video.
Wallets for billions of pounds in cryptocurrency. Chien, though, slipped through the net again and went on the run across the UK for 5 years, living as a recluse in Glasgow and the Scottish Highlands. Investigators at the Met Police and the...
What? She lived in the Scottish Highlands as a recluse with her millions of dollars of ill-gotten crypto. Bruh. What? She's living my dream. My actual dream. If politics... Okay, no, rephrase. Once I resolve all the problems in America and I choose to retire from politics in the public life, one of the places I have actually considered retiring to is the Highlands of Scotland because they are absolutely beautiful. Just absolutely beautiful. And the year-round climate of Scotland is between 60 degrees and 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Like, what's not to want? And this lady was living that life for 5 years.
National Crime Agency finally traced her to a property in York where she was lying in bed when police broke in.
Bruh, all she had to do was live in Glasgow, Scotland, living in the Highlands of Scotland, petting the cows with the big horns forever, and nobody would have found her. But no, she had to go back to York and get caught. Like a fool.
Got to record down your name, if that is all right. So, what's your first name, please?
Yadi Zhang.
Okay. Can you spell that at all for me?
Y-A.
Yep.
D-I.
D-I?
Even this interaction would never.
D-I?
Nope.
Zhang.
Now she's playing charades.
A-N-G.
Is that your surname, Zhang?
Yeah.
And Yadi's your first name?
Yeah.
And are you Miss or Mrs. or Ms?
Single.
Okay.
It's this interaction. All right, but we
Chen had hired a team of domestic staff to cook, clean and shop for her. They were sworn to secrecy and made to sign a meticulous contract which would have forced them to pay around £8,000 if they even used their mobile phones. Chen initially pleaded her innocence, but later admitted to acquiring and possessing criminal property on the first day of her trial in 2024. Seng Hock Ling, a Malaysian national who helped her to find rental properties, also pleaded guilty to transferring criminal property after he was arrested in Leeds.
We've seized around 61,000 Bitcoin, currently valued at about £5 billion.
61,000 Bitcoin. Jesus Christ.
And other non-crypto assets worth about £200 million or so. So this is the largest confirmed cryptocurrency seizure in the world by law enforcement at the moment. By confirmed seizure by law enforcement in the world. So there are other investigations ongoing, and it's definitely the largest money laundering investigation in the UK by value to date.
The cryptocurrency.
Oh my God. You know what? Thank you for putting this video in here, because I kind of thought this would be a dry video. It's like, oh, crypto scam, but damn. This is almost on par with the Louvre theft, stealing the imperial jewels right on the legs of the No Kings marches that went globally. She scammed people. She scammed working class people. She's a horrible person. I'm not saying that. But like, for the entertainment value, it's literally like watching a bumbling rogue committing crimes and then somehow getting away with it for literally 7 years. I guess 7 years of good luck, and then she finally ran out. Just, what a video. What a person. Like, she's gonna be a legend amongst criminals for generations to come. Because, what even... I started off with your just bread and butter convincing you to buy the timeshare type scam, right? One of those. Then can even duped the Communist Party of China, which is just insane that it even went to the Communist Party of China, right? And then that turns into Bitcoin, which turns into living the high life, which turns into going into the Scottish Highlands, which it's just, it's honestly like, what would a criminal thief do in modern times? And there it is. Okay. So, let's,
Astronauts on...
So, normally when we talk about space, it's, alien conspiracy theory. And when we're talking about China, it's usually applauding them. But this could be pretty scary. So let's see what this is about.
China's Tiangong space station celebrated their colleagues' scheduled departure by conducting what they say was the first ever barbecue in space. The 3 members of China's Shenzhou 20 mission were due to return to Earth after a 6-month rotation, handing over the vessel to the next crew.
We are about to return to Earth.
And now I hand over the hatch key, symbolizing our responsibility for the Chinese space station, to you. I hope that in the next 6 months, you will work efficiently and live healthily.
But just before they were due to leave, China's space agency released a statement announcing their return was postponed, saying their spacecraft had been struck by a small piece of orbital debris. An assessment of the impact and associated risk is currently underway. Experts say the incident highlights how much of a problem debris in space has become. Some of it is parts of rockets that are jettisoned after launch, as well as obsolete satellites and fragments that get stuck in orbit. And space launches by the US, China, and other countries are becoming more frequent.
There are maybe 100.
And then you have Elon Musk not abiding by literally any international space laws whatsoever, causing untold damage in our atmosphere. Again, this is the other thing about space, and I believe I in fact do have a policy to do with space. Just to put into perspective, like, I am not a politician who's just focused on my 4 issues, kissing babies and shaking hands and getting elected. I want to govern and guide the United States of America into the future. From the 20th century into the 21st, even though it's 25 years into the 21st century and we're still pretending it's barely the turn of the 20th. Okay? So, we truly need to invest. I guess I didn't go too deep, as much detail. Let me rephrase. I didn't give more detail than I was expecting. To talk about like the debris and all and cleaning up space. Like, one of the first things somebody's gonna have to do is create a method to clean up the space debris. Now, oh wait, I'm here. I am talking about my website, and I wasn't in the right screen. Like I said, I'm actually trying to lead the country. Anyway, now, how much of that debris is metallic? How much of that is ferrous? And then how much of it is other, right? Because if it's metal, i.e. ferrous, let me rephrase. If it's ferrous, i.e. magnetic, then you could get some sort of highly mobile satellite that can just magnetize things and then shuck it into Earth's orbit or shuck it out of Earth's orbit and then continue on, right? But if it's any other material, you're going to have to be a lot more imaginative, damn near creating a vacuum in space, which is already a vacuum. So you'd have to do some sort of like, you'd have to do something. Either a big ass net, and then that brings it in and shucks it, or like, but we're going to have to start strongly, seriously considering some sort of stellar object, some sort of machine to clean up the orbit of our planet. Otherwise, we're not actually going to be able to do things in space anymore. Because the second we send something up there, it's going to get decimated by the little debris that's out there. And here's the other thing about orbits. We think going 200 miles per hour is pretty damn fast. Flying in an airplane 600 miles per hour, that's pretty damn fast. Fighter jets, Mach 3, that's pretty damn fast, right? And then rockets hitting Mach 20 or further, right? That's pretty damn fast. Well, guess what? That those 20 G's is what it takes to break our atmosphere and the pull of Earth's gravity. That's why we have to go that fast and that hard. And once stuff is in space and you've gotten past that, guess what? You're still going that fast, just in a vacuum, because space is a vacuum. So what do you think's happening to the debris? Do you think the debris is slowing down at a paltry 60 miles per hour? Or is it also veering around at Mach 20? Right? So, don't take my word for it. How fast are objects man-made objects moving in space. Actually, it looked like there was an image there. Neat, those are our probes, but I guess that's not talking about what's in space. I don't like AI overviews, but it does seem... Okay, so here's a good one. Satellites like the International Space Station must travel at least 17,500 miles per hour to stay in orbit and avoid falling back to Earth. Son of a bitch. Sorry, I was in the wrong thing. This right here. So that would imply that if something were to break off of the space station, God forbid, it too would be then traveling at 17,500 miles per hour, which is, well, I'm not smart enough to do that math in my head. The speed of sound is roughly 700 miles per hour, so 25 times the speed of sound. Most bullets travel between 2 to 3 times the speed of sound. Like most, if this weren't a prop, right? So the human eye cannot perceive something that fast, right? Now imagine it's moving 25 times faster than that. If you're out there in space and you get hit by debris, you're done. You are done. Absolutely done. Now, imagine it's a sophisticated piece of equipment and machinery that's extremely delicate despite being in space. And it gets hit by a bolt going 17,500 miles per hour. What do you think's going to happen? It would be the equivalent of getting hit by an artillery shell. That tiny little bolt would have the energy and momentum of an artillery shell. Probably more. So, yeah, debris in space is a huge, huge problem that is being exacerbated by private industries who don't care about regulations or international treaties and aren't being held accountable by the international community in the first place. So, for a perspective.
140 million pieces of space debris in orbit, and most of those are in low orbit, which is where Tiangong and Shenzhou are operating. But most of these pieces are extremely small. They might be pieces of paint or tiny pieces of metal that have come off of spacecraft. But because the speed is so fast, when...
It's like I know what I'm talking about. It's like I know what I'm talking about. It's almost as if I'm not an idiot. It's almost as if I am actively trying to convey leadership qualities and the competence that would instill hope and inspiration and support and feel good in my abilities to lead and understand even the basic understandings of science, economics, agriculture, industry, what have you, which is a far cry from even the best of our elected officials, never mind the worst ones that we got. So,
when they hit something, it can still be very dangerous.
It's unclear when exactly the collision took place or when the crew members are likely to return. The mission's commander, Chen Dong, already holds a Chinese record for spending the most days in space, more than 400. Glitches in space are not uncommon. NASA astronauts Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams returned to Earth in March after being stuck on board the International Space Station for 9 months after technical problems delayed the end of their week-long mission. Chinese authorities say an emergency plan has been activated and the damaged Shenzhou 20 ship is likely to return to Earth without a crew. A new craft is reportedly being made ready. Katrina Yu, Al Jazeera, Beijing.
Well, that's reassuring. Hopefully those people aren't stuck in there for 9 friggin' months. But also, imagine being in space for a year. That's gotta be... You know, I get it's not Space Cowboy or on the Star Trek Enterprise or whatever, or hell, on the Death Star, but it's still space. Like, that's gotta be something. Like, or maybe it's just the novelty of being in space, and it's like, all right, it's been a year. I want my phone. I want to go on the internet. I want to eat a hot dog. I don't want to eat recycled, food or whatever. So I get that. All right. Yeah, Anna, I'm sorry. I wasn't ignoring your comments there, but you're absolutely right. We are so cooked as a species that we're already polluting space when we're not even really able to traverse space. That's nuts. You know what else is nuts? When a title of a video includes Finland as part of a military conflict, because Finland is not an aggressive country. They're just not. And yet, Finland-Russia tensions with border towns suffer.
This is a new fence Finland erected to stop the surge in crossings from Russia. The government accuses Moscow of trying to flood the country with migrants. The border has been sealed since 2023.
We're able to meet with the Russians and, for example, discuss every border incident and see what has happened there. And we may not agree on everything, but every case can be examined together.
Hundreds of thousands of Russian tourists used to visit Finland every year. Border towns like Imatra thrived, and malls, hotels and restaurants were built. But now it's almost deserted. Shops have closed and many businesses have gone bankrupt.
If you think 100 years ago, this is like a field.
Thomas Rautio bought this mall and has tried to repurpose it to attract local and European tourists.
We have the biggest and cleanest lake in Finland. The people come here on their way to their summer houses, and this is the last place where people can do their shopping before the wilderness starts.
Okay, well that doesn't... I thought we were talking about war. What? I could give a damn about Finnish tourism. Like, no offense to Finland, but that's not exactly earth-shattering news.
This is recover their losses.
The Russian...
I'm sorry, I don't care about... Okay.
Tourists used to spend one...
Okay, so okay. All right, so the crisis is economic and touristy? Okay. That's not quite newsworthy. It isn't traumatizing, and it isn't dystopian. Thank God. Like, yay. But it's also not, I would say, that important. In the grand scheme of things, it is a shame that people are losing their livelihoods.
But remains tense. Hashim Al-Bara, Al Jazeera, Imatra.
So, okay. But there is tensions amongst these countries that border each other while these other conflicts are going. I get that. 100%. That part makes sense. So, again, this next video is going to be not political, but certainly talking about a major catastrophe that is now impacting Bangladesh. Now they're suffering from climate change issues, or climate change related issues such as rising waters. Again, America is dealing with the same thing. We're just in denial, right? What do you think all these major hurricanes are? All these Cat 5 hurricanes that are devastating our coast, or the one that crawled all the way up to damn near the North England states? That's not normal. Or the fact that we are having warmer winters and falls than in years past. Like, this is not normal, and we're just straight up denying that it is happening. So, in Bangladesh, they can't ignore it because it is wiping out communities.
Wetlands of Bangladesh, where roads vanish underwater for months. Schools don't shut down. Like many 8 years old, Isharani waits at the river in her village for a classroom to arrive. Her floating school is part of a fleet catering for children cut off by floodwaters.
We don't have a school near our village, so they pick us up from the riverbank. We love coming here. We learn Bangla, English, math, and science. It's really fun. We like it here.
Honestly, I wasn't expecting that in this video either. But how cool. That's actually cool. How awesome is that? I would have been beside myself if I could go to school on a barge. Are you kidding me? I get to float down the river and learn about stuff. What? That's awesome. Scary because of the situation and the circumstances, but that little sliver is pretty cool.
More than 100 boats serve as
And look, it's got
schools,
solar panels.
others as libraries, training centers, and clinics, educating more than 22,000 students. In flood-hit Bangladesh, innovation is keeping life afloat. From solar-powered floating school to water-based hydroponic farms, communities here are proving that living with water can be a powerful way to adapt and fight climate change.
Which is true. So here's the thing. Rising sea levels is a thing. It is happening. It is now inevitable, right? With the melting polar ice caps and so on and so forth, the rising temperatures, the different, like the polar blasts that keep hitting, it's going to impact the water levels. And that's what is inevitably happening on Earth, is that the water levels continue to rise and continue to erode landmass everywhere. Everywhere on Earth. Landmass is not outpacing the rising sea levels, okay? That being said, because that is true, because that is a thing, we really do need to adapt to more water-friendly and survival capabilities, because that is in our immediate future. And it would be one thing if it was just normal, gentle rising, but we are also having extreme weather anomalies, and we're also having extreme climate anomalies occurring at the same time. So not only do we have to adapt to the water, we also need to adapt to the harsh conditions within that water. And it seems that there are some countries that we wouldn't have expected leading the forefront doing just that.
These are the brainchild of architect Mohammad Rezwan. His non-profit organization launched the concept in 2002. Now Rezwan plans to expand them to 40 districts across Bangladesh and work with Yale University to trial the model in another 10 countries.
That would be
I was born and
outstanding.
grown up in a riverside community.
Go Bangladesh. I mean, outstanding. Mohammad Rezwan. Absolutely. This could actually start being used in the South. Like across the Mississippi River. What's another big river? Isn't the Ohio River another big one? And I think we got something further to the west. What are the major rivers in America? Right. Oh, okay. So the Mississippi is everything, right? Gotcha. So, I mean, damn it. I keep forgetting. So if we take this image, which is now loading. Pacific Institute. Okay, so if we take this map of the major rivers of the contiguous 48 states, we could probably start implementing this across a vast swath of our country. Now, here's the thing. This border of Ohio right there is very rural and very sparsely populated. It is perfectly conceivable that we could use these river barges in Ohio even. I don't know too much about Indiana per se, or the southern part of Illinois, but I also know that this strip down here along, I think it's Highway 75, that is the southern states, which consists of Arkansas, I think Mississippi's around here, Louisiana. Not all of them have strong populations along the river or otherwise. So, and a lot of those communities are therefore poor. Like, this could very well resolve both the climate clean energy part of it, right? But also adapting and utilizing our natural resources. Now, because it's in America, we'll probably find a way to make it capitalism and then also make it a, gasoline fuel powered monstrosity, which might pollute our drinking water, so maybe it's not a great deal for America until I'm in office. But on principle, this could help I mean, and this is where a majority of the population of America is. Right along here where all these major water... I mean, unironically, that is where people live, is near water sources, even in modern times, because guess what? You need water to live. So it is not that surprising that a lot of our major population centers are along these water lines too. So that is a very interesting concept that could even take place here in the United States.
And I have seen floods and its impact to the education of children. And I thought that if the children cannot go to school, then the school should come to them. So that simple idea actually helped me to design and develop floating schools.
Elsewhere, farmers are reviving biocultivation, a traditional hydroponic method of growing vegetables on rafts made of hyacinths and bamboo. There are also training classes for adults.
Here we learn a lot, from making biofertilizers to farming poultry and fishing sustainably, how to deal with floods and growing flood-resistant rice.
In a country learning to live with
Again, that's outstanding. We should 100% be adapting the same agricultural practices that our ancestors used on that land to thrive without all of our modern bullshit. Because guess what? If it worked for them, it's definitely going to work for us. And then we can find a way to make that process more efficient and effective rather than try and do, I don't know, all of this industrial farming and the GMO seeds that are just these genetically monstrosity modified things. Chattahoochee, where did that come from? I guess I missed that. Bangladesh sounds like the onomatopoeia of a falling plate of steel. Well, considering... that's an odd first chat to make. I hope you're not discriminating. That's all I'm going to say, because if you are, you're going to be blocked.
floods, rising seawater levels, and climate change, these innovations are teaching far more than reading, writing, or farming. They're teaching resilience. Tanvi Chaudhary, Al Jazeera, Pabna, Bangladesh.
Oh, dang, I was actually hoping for more of this.
Don't miss.
Still, what an outstanding video. And again, this is incredible human ingenuity. And it also goes to show that just because we live in modern times with the internet and electricity and space travel doesn't mean that the lessons of our past cannot be relevant today. Hell, if we made our buildings the same way Romans made their roads, we wouldn't have to rebuild our fucking roads every 5, 10, 15 years. Imagine if we recreated concrete like the Romans did. Yes, it involves volcanic ash and seawater, but guess what? Seawater is everywhere on this planet, and volcanic ash, there are plenty of ongoing active volcanoes. And guess what? You can just gather it in some way. I don't know. I generally don't know what that would look like. But imagine if we would embrace some of the older technologies or figured out, okay, Roman concrete worked the way that it did because there were chunks of concrete that when it was activated would just fill in the gaps that caused the big chunk to be activated in the first place. Imagine if instead of focusing on creating the smoothest, purest concrete, we actually started using chunky concrete and then not having to constantly rebuild stuff 10, 20, 30 years, or every 10, 20, 30 years. Like that would be incredible. Yeah, Vancouver, because it usually starts like that. We've had plenty of people make innocent comments on chat and we ignored it, and then it goes into full-on Reichstag discriminatory discussion. So we're just I am personally being very cautious. That's all. We try to not. I don't take too many chances with it because we do get trolled quite often on this channel, as you can possibly imagine, by being as left-leaning as we are. But one final word about Bangladesh. Like, Bangladesh is a country that most of us don't hear about and certainly don't interact with in the United States of America and perhaps Europe. I can't speak for Europe, but I can speak for America. And recently, Bangladesh has been in the news, in our international news, quite often, and notably, for once, for something really innovative. Because prior to that, it was, well, civil unrest and rising geopolitical conflict. So it's really interesting to see that a country that is usually never mentioned in Western media at all, and of course this isn't Western media, is actually pushing some of the bounds of science and social infrastructure that the West has just not considered or is not even in the process of working on. And we see these other countries innovating with their own ingenuity and their own culture and their own history. I think that is outstanding. I hope that we can find more videos like this on Wednesdays, because that is truly interesting.
We are in the municipality.
Truly political news. Here we go. Chile presidential election. And I guess they vote on Sundays. Imagine that.
Of Maipú. This is a working class part of Santiago where Janet Jara is holding her final campaign rally, and you can see you can't fit a pin in here. It is absolutely packed with supporters. Jara is from the Communist Party, but the people here are from all walks of life and all different sectors. And
I thought she was going to say something like, he's with the Communist Party, but people are supporting him anyway. I was waiting for that. You want the West to become like Bangladesh. Never heard of that before. No, I said that I think the West could learn from other countries, and I think it's impressive that other countries are leading the way in ways that Western countries have either not considered or are being beaten by, which, again, I think is noteworthy. I think if we don't innovate and if we don't expand our own beliefs, values, and understandings of things and continue to think that our version and our means is the only way of doing things, you end up in stagnation or worse, regression, which is evidenced by what's happening today in both America and Western society at large.
Necessarily from the Communist Party at all. And it's surprising to see how many young people and older people are here. It's really quite across the board, the support for this woman, who is also the first working class, truly working class presidential candidate that Chile has had, perhaps ever. She is running first in the polls.
She represents the people, ordinary people. She's a fighter, a sincere woman who isn't contaminated by the same old politicians.
She has very, very strong opposition, particularly from the extreme right.
Why is the extreme right so relevant in every country and in every election? Why is fascism making such a massive major comeback? Globally. Did we not put this to rest? Evidently not, because every country is dealing with their alt-right. It's crazy to me. Alright, so I was right about the troll. I don't know why people act like this, but anyway. I don't understand, like, why are you going to come on my channel, say something that's pretty questionable, act offended, and then be even more racist? Like, and actually be openly racist. I don't get that. I was in the process of blocking her, but it wasn't working for me for some reason. But still, I don't get people like that. Again, you're part of the problem. You are literally part of the problem of the divide and the discrimination and aiding and abetting fascism and discriminatory behavior that causes societies to regress and fall into authoritarianism, which hurts everybody. Like, being racist directly contributes to your life getting worse. And I don't know how else to describe that. I really don't.
At this moment, Jose Antonio Cas, who is an extreme conservative, is holding his final rally in an auditorium, a very large one in another part of town. He is supported by the business sector, by banks, by the upper class particularly, and also by those who say that they are afraid of the left wing and particularly of a president who belongs to the Communist Party. Even though Janet...
What are you afraid of? We're afraid of the left wing and someone who's communist. What are you afraid of? Having universal health care, housing, a job, guaranteed wages and access to things that you need? Where is the fear? Again, capitalism is quite frankly one of the best propaganda mechanisms on earth in all of history, and that includes religion. It used to be religion was the number one propaganda machine in society. And then capitalism was born and was like, hold my beer. And guess what? Capitalism's propaganda is doing way more damage than any religious zealotry could have ever hoped to accomplish. And again, religion is currently actively causing global and geopolitical conflict. And yet capitalism is the driving force behind all of it.
Jara is representing a center-left coalition, the same one that is in the government right now.
So wait, they're afraid of left-leaning people, but the coalition that is currently in government is center-left. So you're afraid of the left, but your country is already left. What? That just solidifies the whole propaganda thing. Yeah, God forbid people control the means of production and the future of their own lives. Chile should know better than having a right-wing dictatorship for decades. Right, that's exactly my point. Just like Germany should know better than having the AfD run rampant. Or talking about, we will make the strongest army that Europe has ever seen. Bro. This isn't a taunt, but I'm the stronger Pokemon trainer. Bet. Who's your starter? Grass, water, or fire type?
We need radical change in this country. This country can't survive another government like the one we have. We need an austere state that's efficient.
So people are actually saying we want austerity. This is why education is so important. Name one country, one country throughout all of human history where austerity measures resulted in populous prosperity. Austerity measures resulted in people prospering. One country throughout all of human history. I'll wait.
These are two very different proposals for the future of Chile. There are two other conservative candidates in the race, but none are expected to obtain 50% plus one of the votes needed to avoid a runoff. And if the polls are right, Janet Jara will be one of the finalists. Lucia Newman, Al Jazeera, Santiago, Chile.
Don't miss out. Get the full picture. Subscribe to our...
Well, hopefully Sunday doesn't result in another right-wing dictatorship in the Western Hemisphere, because America is bad enough, and we really don't need that.
Dozens of indigenous protesters carrying batons have forced their way into the venue that's hosting the COP30 climate talks in Brazil. The protesters chanted slogans about indigenous land rights and clashed with the security guards and police at the entrance to the convention centre in Belém. Anjana Gajal reports.
It started as a carnival atmosphere outside the COP30 conference in Belém in Brazil, with protesters calling for more action on climate change.
They're breaching through. They're going towards the COP venue.
Then dozens forced their way into the venue, where they were outnumbered by police and security. They carried placards and flags saying our forests are not for sale.
We came here
in a protest to show them that the COP is for the people and the people must be there. All peoples of all colors, all ethnicity, because they need to hear us.
The protesters were mainly from indigenous communities based around the Amazon region where the UN summit's taking place. Many are critical of the damage caused by development and deforestation and feel their voices aren't being heard, despite Brazil's President Lula saying they would be front and centre of this year's talks.
Which, even when you have a president, like President Lula, who is genuinely on the socialist spectrum of leadership, right? Even they fall short. Where was the indigenous spokespeople? Where was their place at the table, right? Secondly, what the Amazon rainforest, for those who don't know, is literally referred to as the lungs of Earth. Not America, not the lungs of South America, not the lungs of the Western Hemisphere, not the lungs of Brazil, the lungs of Earth. Why are we trying to mess with that? Because rich people want a bigger number? No. No. Oh, because population is rising? How about you build affordable housing that goes up instead of across? Like, this is just not... We're going to kill ourselves in the pursuit of profit. And I 100% agree with these protesters. We definitely need to do something about our waters, our rivers, and our air literally being polluted and extracted for profit every single step of the way. That's not sustainable. We are not going to survive as a species if we keep plundering our own planet's ecosystem. It's just, that's not how that's going to work.
Security guards pushed the protesters back, but at least 2 people were hurt. And the break-in will concern the organisers of the summit, which attracts high-profile politicians every year, such as Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, and thousands of delegates from almost 200 countries. A UN spokesperson said the venue had been secured and negotiations continue. And Jana Gadgil, BBC News.
It was at least, I mean, from that video at least, it didn't seem to be as violent of a response as we have seen in America for protests, for instance, or other countries for that matter. So that's the only silver lining as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, also, why the fuck is Gavin Newsom going to a Brazilian venue about the Amazon rainforest? He's the governor of California. Unless he's there to advocate to keep the forest clean, then why do you need to be there? Oh, because he wants to be part of the development process and make sure California gets a piece of the pie? Like, this is... I don't know, man. All right. So, speaking of wow...
Speaking of sanctions, guess who just scored some more sanction relief? None other than the former al-Qaeda leader, now known as Ahmed al-Shara, the current president of Syria, formerly known as his nom de guerre, al-Jalani. So he made a historic visit to the White House yesterday, first time ever by a Syrian head of state. So extraordinary. This guy just, I think, less than a year ago was a designated terrorist with a $10 million bounty on his head. Now he's hanging out in the White House, warmly greeted by Trump, playing basketball with former commanders who were previously out trying to kill him. Let's take a listen to Trump here, D1, getting asked about his past and how he squares that with their now friendly relationship.
You can expect some announcements on Syria. We want to see Syria become a country that's very successful, and I think this leader can do it. I really do. I think this leader can do it. And people said he's had a rough past. We've all had rough pasts.
A rough past? A rough past. A rough past is, I was stealing bread and food and clothing for 5 years because I was living in poverty and homeless, and went to jail for 2 months, got out with a prison to work pipeline program, and then turned my life around. That is having a past. I was an idiot and got drunk, got a DUI, and my whole life blew up for 7 years. That's a rough past. I got into a fight, went to jail. That's a rough past. A leader of Al-Qaeda, an avowed terrorist organization terrorizing Syria and other parts of the Middle East, is not a rough past. That is a clear and present danger. And the fact that he rose to being a leader in Syria, the president of Syria, is indicative of, again, the kind of corruption that these kind of militants engage in. By terrorizing Syria, you weaken the government until you can take over said government and install yourself in a position of power and leadership. Which is exactly what the Tea Party did, which then evolved into MAGA, which brought us this piece of garbage by eroding our Constitution and our democratic processes over the course of 20 years, 25 years or so, until we could install a dictator and have all the pieces in the right place to undermine our Constitution. It's the same thing. One did it through violence and brutality, and the other did it by scheming over decades. Real economy destroying our environment, state-owned enterprise tend to corrupt. I would disagree with that. State-owned enterprises are no more or less corruptible than privately owned enterprises. And I would argue state enterprises would be less susceptible to corruption so long as they are in agreement with the people, as long as it's by the consent of the people, right? As long as there's consent of the people, corruption is likely less to happen. But then again, are the people able to enforce that consent? So, to a degree, I guess I kind of just did defend your point. State and private ownership is corruptible. Yes, 100% would agree with that. But I don't think state enterprises are more corruptible than private. Accountability, exactly. That is the main point that I was trying to make.
But he has had a rough past, and I think, frankly, if you didn't have a rough past, you wouldn't have a chance. He gets along very well with Turkey.
Yeah, that's right. I'm sorry. Thanks for the follow, Sarah. I apologize. I completely, that went over my head. I think I was talking when you followed, so.
With President Erdogan, who's a great leader. Erdogan's a great leader.
So he says, people say he's had a rough past. We've all had rough pasts, Sagar. And
Yes.
then he goes on to say that quote unquote rough past of being an Al-Qaeda terrorist, that actually may help him in his leadership. He gets along with Turkey. He says you may need that kind of a rough past to be in this position. I mean, just absolutely insane. And I have to point out that this comes at a time when a lot of people on the right, including Trump, are out there shrieking about Zoran Mamdani is a jihadist and he's an Islamist and he's going to implement Sharia law in New York City. And you have a literal former terrorist being welcomed into the White House and gaining sanctions relief and scoring new military partnerships, et cetera, et cetera.
That's a good point. I hadn't put that together, but you're absolutely right. I mean, it's just one of the most depressing things for anybody who lived through the war on terror. I mean, I can't imagine, yesterday was the birthday of the United States Marine Corps. Imagine being one of those Marines who served in, what was it, Al-Anbar province in Iraq, and you're fighting Al-Qaeda, literally guys like Jilani and his entire crew who blew up your friends and who you had to try, and to beat back at bay, and you're desperately trying to stop the rise of these jihadists, and then to see him come to the United States of America and to put a suit on, and everybody is just laying out the red carpet for him. And let's all remember why. It's because he's pro-Israel. That's the only reason, okay? That's the whole ball game, is because he was pro-Israel. Also, it really does validate a lot of the whole Al-Qaeda is CIA stuff from the 2010s, which I'll be honest, I dismissed. But at this point, I mean, how else can you explain David Petraeus Petraeus being like, I worry about how you sleep at night, the former CIA director, when he did that interview with al-Shara. And now, put D2 up here, for example.
So, that's kind of my point, too, right? He was going a little bit American imperial propaganda-y on us, but that's okay. You know what? That is the rub. That is the rub. And I was active duty Air Force. I enlisted because I thought my duty to my country, to serve my country, to serve my people, would be to deploy to the Middle East to fight the terrorists, which I do believe at the time was Al-Qaeda. So it's not like I wasn't susceptible to it myself, right? Or the fact that that is why I enlisted in the first place. Of course, I quickly learned that it wasn't Islam that was the enemy, it was Al-Qaeda and extremism that was the enemy, but that's neither here nor there either. What is really important to note here are the key phrases. This guy supports Israel. There was decades of war and conflict with Al-Qaeda, to the point where Al-Qaeda was both our enemy and ally during the said war, and that the unprecedented level of support that we are giving an avowed terrorist in America that we fought against actively is not to be said lightly. It would it would be like bringing Osama bin Laden back and inviting him into the White House because he ended up being the president of Afghanistan. It is literally the same level. It would be like inviting Hitler. Literally like inviting Hitler to the White House. Of course, we can argue that Hitler's already in the White House, but it's literally that level of bad guy who is trying to reform themselves and their image, and then inviting them over. Oh, Trump went on and on about how handsome he is. That's creepy, to say the least, but okay. All right. So, I think, I don't really know how much more needs to be said about it. And actually, we're only halfway through the list. So, let's move on to the next one. I guess I've been taking too long on these videos.
We stay in New Delhi. The world has reacted strongly to the high-intensity car blast near the Red Fort. Condolences and statements have poured in from across the globe, with several nations expressing solidarity with India and concern over the attack. The United States says it is closely tracking developments following the car explosion near Delhi's Red Fort metro station. A spokesperson for the US State Department said that Washington is monitoring the situation and stands ready to provide consular assistance. The US Embassy in New Delhi also issued a security alert, urging American citizens to avoid the Red Fort and Chandni Chowk areas, staying away from large crowds and remaining vigilant. Both the United Kingdom and France expressed concern over the deadly blast. British High Commissioner to India, Lindy Cameron, said her thoughts are with those affected and urged citizens to follow local advisories. France's ambassador said Paris...
Okay, but do we have any idea why this was attacked? Like, is there anybody claiming this accident? Or not this accident, this attack? Is there... Yes, obviously the international community is going to give their empty condolences, but like, what's going on?
Stands with India during this, as in India, conveyed the purpose of international with those affected recover, deeply saddened by the tragic loss of lives in the Delhi explosion. Sri Lanka's president also conveyed in Bhutan. The king continues his official visit to the country. As global reactions continue to pour in, India remains on high alert. The probe into the Red Fort blast is ongoing, with authorities examining CCTV footage and multiple leads to determine the cause behind the deadly explosion.
Wonder facts?
Are you shitting me? That was the whole thing? People are sad? Like, yes, of course people are going to be sad, but why did this attack happen and nobody took credit for it? Like, that's the thing we needed to know. Okay?
The BBC is facing its biggest crisis in decades. 2 of its top leaders just resigned over allegations of left-wing bias, and U.S. President Donald Trump is threatening to sue for $1 billion.
Oh my God. Really? Left-wing bias, the BBC? Do you know how many videos of the BBC we've covered that talked about Palestine where they were throating the boot of Israel? And how they are one of the most egregious propagandists in the Russo-Ukrainian war? Like, the BBC is left-leaning where? Where is the BBC left-leaning? The fact that they sometimes try to hold or convey an intent to hold Trump accountable or say he did something wrong, that's the left-leaning? Are you kidding me? Yeah, and BBC employees signed a letter about their pro-Israel bias. Exactly. That should be the crisis, not left-leaning. And then Trump suing a bit. You know what? I'm going to sue the BBC for $1 billion. Apparently that's the thing to do now. Maybe we could win and get $1 billion and fund the revolution in America. Let's go. What?
Started with a leaked memo to the BBC's board, raising concerns about left-wing bias in coverage of Donald Trump, the Israel-Hamas war, and transgender issues.
Okay,
the memo was leaked.
That's already right-wing bias, because it's not an Israel-Hamas war. It's a genocide against Palestinians perpetuated by Israel. So that's right-wing bias right off the rap.
Leaked to the Daily Telegraph,
Jesus.
Critics pounced, and the BBC took a week to respond, creating an impression of paralysis. Then things got worse. The BBC eventually apologized for a panorama documentary that spliced together multiple parts of a speech by President Trump on January 6, 2021, that made it appear as if he was calling on his supporters to violently storm the Capitol.
He was. He literally was. Which is why he is pardoning them left, right, and center. What?
Right here, we're going to walk down to the Capitol.
Now, Trump said this was unfair and left out key parts where he encouraged protesters to remain peaceful. The Director General and head of news resigned, and Trump's lawyers sent a letter threatening to sue unless the BBC retracted the documentary and apologized. But there's more. BBC correspondents reported a clash between news managers who wanted to apologize and the board, which said the problem was of larger institutional bias. The BBC disputes this account. Still, the damage is done and it could get worse. This comes as the British government is reviewing how it funds the BBC and as its licensing fee model is coming under increasing pressure as viewers turn to streaming.
Oh, what is this world coming to? So, the BBC is literally state-sponsored media. Literally. It's obviously in the name. British Broadcasting Company. And the British government is like, y'all are out of pocket. You're not spreading the propaganda like we want you to. So we're gonna investigate our own state-sponsored media and determine on whether or not you should even still be live. What? Also, that's the crazy thing about streaming, which is what we're doing. People don't trust media anymore that they are turning to streamers that they do trust, right? Who do you trust more? Some billionaire schmuck? Some multimillionaire schmuck? Some correspondent being told what to tell you by the CIA or some billionaire schmuck? Or me, some asshole in the Oval Office? You're more inclined to believe me than even this guy. Because I'm going to see what this guy says and be like, nah, full of shit. Don't listen to him. This is how it really is. And then either continue on the grift aspect of it or actually break down what was being said and analyze why it's bullshit. Now, oh my God. What? Oh my God. All right. Dang, this next video is not going to be funny or sad or silly. This is going to be not fun.
Ukrainian engineers are working to restore power supplies after a sustained Russian drone and missile attack, which caused blackouts in many areas. At least 6 people were killed in attacks across the country. 3 died in the city of Dnipro after a Russian drone struck a high-rise residential building. Our diplomatic correspondent James Landale sent this report from the Ukrainian capital, Kyiv.
This woman was one of the lucky ones. Her apartment block in Dnipro was hit just after midnight, an unmanned Russian bomber drone punching a vast hole in the side of the building.
And see,
3 people lost.
It's not okay when Israel does it. It's not okay when Russia does it. It's certainly not okay when America does it. This is a civilian structure. That is illegal. Period. Dot. End of story. That is a war crime. Plain and simple. Well, I don't know what their model is entirely, but I do agree that there should be far more accountability and oversight over social media and media, and that it shouldn't be owned, controlled, and operated by billionaires. 100% agree.
Their lives, more than 10 were wounded, including 2 children. Amazingly, out of this rubble, 28 residents and their pets were rescued by the emergency services.
At first, we didn't understand what had happened. Then I looked for my parents. My mother was lying on the bed, and a window frame fell on her. It was scary.
The explosions were very powerful. It was truly frightening for every living person who was in that archway.
This was just one of 25 locations across Ukraine struck in what was a comprehensive drone and missile attack. The targets mainly energy infrastructure, leaving many areas without electricity or heating.
It's an honor to have a friend of mine here, Viktor Orban.
The strikes came only hours after Donald Trump met Hungary's Prime Minister at the White House. The president gave his ally a 1-year exemption from US sanctions against buying oil and gas from Russia, something that did not go down well in Kyiv.
There is not enough pressure on Russia, and any relaxation in the existing pressure only motivates Putin to drag out this war, to cause more harm to our country, our people. Any weakness in the response to Russia's impudent behavior gives Russia a motive to continue the war.
The thing is, he's not wrong. If you're not going to use diplomatic or economic means to discourage Russian military aggression, then you're only leaving yourself military options. And again, why are you advocating on behalf of Russia in the first place? If Hungary needs oil, doesn't America produce an astronomical amount of oil? Why can't we supply Europe their oil? If that's what we're doing, why aren't we able to supply our allies? Why would NATO, in the midst of a conflict with Russia, get resources from Russia? That doesn't even make sense. I don't understand. I don't understand. Okay.
How does a $20 billion bailout of Argentina help Americans? You're the president's point person on that. Can you explain to those here who are feeling the pinch, including America's farmers, why the United States is helping out Argentina?
Well, do you know what a swap line is?
It's currency swap, yes.
Yes, but what is that?
You're the Treasury Secretary.
Yes, but why would you call it a bailout?
That is how...
In most bailouts, you don't make money. The U.S. government made money. We used our financial balance sheet to stabilize the government. One of our great allies in Latin America, during an election, the president there won in a landslide. The government's going to make money, and I would rather use peace through economic strength than have to be shooting at narco boats coming offshore if the government collapsed. We have a generational opportunity in Latin America to create allies. We just saw an election in Bolivia. We're probably going to see an election in Colombia. We've seen them in Ecuador. We're going to see them in Chile. So by stabilizing the economy there and making a profit, then that's a very good deal for the American people. And there's a lot we could have been doing for American farmers, but Democrats closed the government.
So how?
So let me get this straight. This is MSNBC. That's who's conducting the interview. And you just allowed this Republican to lie or at least pander for the past 30 seconds, uninterrupted and unchallenged. I don't understand how we don't have actual state-sponsored media that just dictates terms. Because functionally, that's what we have.
How has the United States made money off of this? And you talk about trying to make more regional relationships. The United States is shooting alleged narco boats in international waters off the coast of Venezuela. The United States has not provided evidence yet that those are indeed drug traffickers. So how are these two things working in tandem?
We are preempting the collapse of a government and going back to a Peronist agenda and a left-wing government. What if somebody had raised their hand and said, look at what's happening with Hugo Chavez, look at what's happening with Maduro, and they help the opposition there?
Yeah, hey, Mr. Secretary, I'm just curious, just to clarify, have we made our money back already from the Argentina bailout or the swap line or whatever you call it? Have we made that money back now? Are you saying we're going to make that money back from them over time? Like, what's the payout for that?
We already have a profit on that swap line.
So have we given them? Did we transfer $20 billion?
No,
and we've already gotten back?
Absolutely not. We made a line of credit available, and
okay.
So again, I would call that a whole nothing burger, and I'm sorry that we wasted 2.5 minutes on that, or 2 minutes and 50 seconds on that, because again, it was just more propaganda where the reporters didn't push back at all. Like, what's the point of being a left-wing news center and inviting the opposition to talk if you're not going to challenge the opposition? I don't understand how that is. Okay.
This fall, the White House promised a $40 billion bailout of Argentina and its president, Javier Milei, President Trump's political ally. Argentina also grows soybeans and is considered a competitor. During the trade war, China had purchased soybeans from Argentina instead of buying them from the U.S. The bailout enraged many American farmers who felt betrayed.
President Trump said Argentina has got no money. They have no anything. They're fighting so hard to survive.
Come to the farm. Come walk in my shoes.
What would you show the president if he took you up on your offer to come and see the farm?
I'd show him the daily life that I do, from cleaning equipment, running equipment, dispatching trucks, and then I'd hand him a stack of bills. And then I would show him the receipts, what I'm getting from my crop, and he's a smart man. I'm not going to take that away from him. And it won't take him to 5 minutes to say, this isn't going to work.
Venezuela is ordering
You know what?
massive mobilization.
You know what? Bet. You know what? I would pay good money for Trump to go to a real farm, talk to a real farmer who did exactly what he just said he was going to do the equipment, clean the stuff, and then hand him the bill. I would pay good money to see that interaction. And then if Trump even understood what he was holding in his hand and make a decision based on that. That's okay. Oh my goodness. All right. VOA Voice of America was your own state media, but shut down by Trump. No, I'm pretty sure Fox News is our state media at this point. And that is clearly not. And I think the only publicly funded news that we had was the NPR, and that is also being defunded. All right. So Venezuela announces massive mobilization of military because, of course they are, because America is literally putting some of our largest war vessels near their international waters.
Of its military, as the United States sends more of its own firepower to the region.
Amantes de la paz.
We love peace. We deeply love peace. We don't want war here nor in any other place around the world. But if they dared...
It's crazy to me that this guy, who's probably, I'm guessing, I don't know Venezuelan ranks, but being as how he's a minister and this, that, and the other, this might be the equivalent of a 4-star general. I like how he has a radio on one shoulder and a knife on another shoulder while giving this press conference. Like, you know how much of a military man I am? I can gut you and then report to my commander that I gutted you. That would be like me in the Oval Office giving a speech about how we're going to be tough. And we're going to get our guy. I can't take that seriously.
We touch Venezuela. They're going to find us in every street.
The announcement came after America's largest warship arrived in U.S. Southern Command area of operations. That area includes most of Latin America. We've got CNN senior national security reporter Zach Cohen in Washington for us. Zach, good to see you. What more do we know about Venezuela's mobilization of not only its troops, but equipment as well as ammunition? And then also, how significant is it that the USS Gerald R. Ford is now in Southern Command's region?
Well, I can tell you how significant it is. It is literally stirring up conflict in the region and is a threat to every country within launching distance of that carrier, especially those countries that aren't capitulating to what Trump wants, which I think is loosely defined by the Geneva Conventions as a war crime. Because guess what? Declaring war or instigating war is itself a war crime. Defending against war is not. So by us instigating unrest and military escalation in the region, we are the bad guys. That's the significance.
Yeah, Venezuelan officials making clear that this mobilization was ordered directly by President Nicolas Maduro, and it comes as a response to the U.S. military buildup in the region, which of course has been used to conduct these strikes against alleged drug boats, but increasing tensions with Venezuela in the process. Venezuelan officials calling the U.S. buildup.
I get that they keep saying it's alleged drug boats, but like they're not even attempting to condemn it at all. Like they're not even really challenging that narrative. They're just saying, these alleged drug boats. It's like extrajudicial murder of these alleged drug boats. Like, throw something in there.
Up a, quote, imperialist threat, and saying that they plan to conduct land, air, and naval exercises to really, as a show of force, to essentially ward off a potential U.S. invasion.
Well, that's not going to be smart. That's probably one of the fastest ways to instigate war with an already aggressive adversary. America is in the region because they want to cause, again, strife and unrest, which is why they're deploying people into our own cities to cause strife and unrest so that they can use actual force to crack down on said force and unrest. So if Venezuela starts doing war games in their territorial waters, that's just going to give Trump the green light to act like the sociopath that he is, which is not what we want.
Of sorts. Now, the aircraft carrier USS Gerald Ford is the U.S.'s largest aircraft carrier. It is the most advanced aircraft carrier in the U.S. fleet.
Hold on. I'm sorry. Did they just come out of a fucking Christmas building? I'm sorry, but how is that your propaganda video when it looks like they're coming out of a Christmas building. Like there's literally Christmas lights up here. Are you kidding me?
This aircraft carrier, it is the most advanced.
I'm not joking. That is look. This is candy cane and Christmas light. Like how is this a propaganda video?
Aircraft carrier.
It's
in
November.
The U.S. fleet. At the same time, it brings significant air assets as well. It has 9 air squadrons, anti-surface capabilities, and it will join what is already a very large U.S. military presence in the region, including guided missile destroyers that are all ballistic capable, raising questions about what this firepower is needed. The Trump administration insists that the Gerald Ford and the rest of the military assets there are intended to conduct the counter-narcotics mission, the targeting of alleged drug boats. But at the same time, I'm told U.S. officials were unable to tell Congress why they need so much firepower to target small boats. So this uncertainty is still increasing and contributing to the ongoing tensions with Venezuela.
Which is the point, right? Like, that's the thing. Military isn't telling Congress. Congress has a right to know. Why do you need the Navy deployed to go after narco-terrorists? First of all, there is not a cartel on Earth. There is not a criminal organization on Earth that has the capacity to challenge a carrier, an aircraft carrier, or any similar vessel anywhere. And honestly, I would be shocked if there are any cartels that could even take any armed military vessel, regardless of size. Because I think the smallest one is a destroyer. I believe that is the smallest naval vessel in a given, let's see, smallest military ship in the modern U.S. Navy. So, a 19-foot long barrier boat. Okay, so that military ship in U.S. Navy that is weaponized. I don't know. Tugboat, barrier boat. No, that's not. Okay. What are the various classes of combat ships in the U.S. Navy? Let's try that one. Navy ships. Obviously, aircraft carriers being numero uno. Amphibious warfare being slightly less than that. Okay. Command, transport, dock landing. Expeditionary mobile base? Jesus. Cruisers. Type of warship. Destroyers. I think they're the smallest ones. Are fast, maneuverable, long-endurance warships intended to escort larger vessels in a fleet, convoy, or battle group and defend them against smaller, powerful, short-range attackers. So, a frigate, maybe? Oh, okay, so it is frigates. Okay, or perhaps littoral combat ships. So either a frigate or a littoral, it seems like. And then you got regular old patrol ships. Okay, let's just take patrol ships, because that sounds like the least warship ship in the Navy. You mean to tell me that there's a narco-terror group, any terror group, that could go up against a patrol ship even? Like, even the least military vessel that we have? Are you out of your fucking minds? Because what are they going to do? You can't... I'm pretty certain you can't just buy a military ship on the black market. Not as a criminal organization. I'm sure you could as a country. But even then, like, that's not a subtle thing. Right? And even if you had such a vessel, the second you bring that sucker out, a country is going to bring an even bigger boat and fuck your shit up. Like, so, there is no justification for the fleet and an aircraft carrier and cruisers to be in these waters to go against cartels. The only reason why you would build up your military presence outside of the the national waters of a country is because of a potential ground invasion. That is the only reason why you would do that. So the question is, are we seriously about to invade Colombia and Venezuela? Just need to see that on a map real quick. What? The country. Stupid. Anyway, the country. So, are we really in the process of... Okay, I guess I'm kind of blocking it. Are we really in the process of a ground invasion of Colombia and Venezuela? Because, and if so, is it because we're trying to regain control of the Panama Canal? Like, from a purely military strategic perspective, you wouldn't build up in the Caribbean Sea because of Venezuela or Colombia. It's because you wanted to regain control of the Panama. But you would threaten Venezuela and Colombia to prevent them from getting the Panama Canal back. But at the same time, if you actually do a ground invasion, you're going to activate the entire global military. Like, we're not going to get away with this. I mean, the world might be afraid of U.S. nuclear weapons and this president being willing to use them. But at the end of the day, we will become a pariah overnight, especially if we do a ground invasion, which is, again, the only reason why you would posture this way. So, we got 15 minutes left. Wonderful. All right, this seems like it might be good news.
Let's take you live now to Dublin Castle. We're watching wonderful pictures actually coming from there of the inauguration of Catherine Connolly as the Republic of Ireland's 10th president. She has just started talking. Let's listen in.
An céad ara an túisceart Michelle Smith agus na ceannairí eile ó gach cairn den túisceart. Go bhhaitlim 100 míle fáilte a chur raibh machlan freisin atá anseo.
So she's really speaking Gaelic right now. Hell yeah. Is there no translation?
Catherine Connolly, who is the new president of Ireland. She's an independent politician elected in a landslide vote, you might remember, at the end of October. She defeated Fine Gael candidate Heather Humphreys. 68 years old, she's going to take over the role from the man you just saw behind her, Michael D. Higgins, whose 14-year term ended at midnight. So it's being attended around her.
What? President of Ireland terms. 7-year terms. Okay. 7 years. Eat your heart out.
There are politicians, judges, lots of other invited guests as well. Let's have a listen as she talks to everyone there at the castle.
No, let's find out what the hell she is about.
Opportunity to pause and to reflect on the horrors of war in a world where, unfortunately, we have all become witnesses to ongoing wars and genocide. Given our history...
Wow, did she actually just condemn Israel? Based, let's go.
The normalization of war and genocide has never been and will never be acceptable to us. As a sovereign, independent nation with a long and cherished tradition of neutrality and an uninterrupted record of peacekeeping since 1958, Ireland is particularly well placed to lead and articulate alternative diplomatic solutions to conflict and war. Indeed.
All right. Dry speech, inauguration speech, so be it. But awesome. There's finally some voice at the international stage that it seems to have some gravitas to stand up to Israel and Zionism. That is outstanding, and I honestly hope that starts catching on to these other countries that are coming up with elections here soon, because We cannot have much more right-wing extremism in the world. We really can't. And so it's refreshing when we see something honestly based happening. Okay. So I guess we sprinted through to the end of the playlist, which is fine. Now, okay, so I've been wanting to talk about like technology in other countries as well, because it's really interesting to see what kind of innovation is going on. So there's going to be 2 shorts and then a much longer video, which we're obviously not going to be able to watch. But these shorts talking about electric roads that were developed in Norway and how it's revolutionizing EVs. I think this would be a very interesting. I think this is just very interesting to consider how this could be implemented and what the implications could be in the United States if we followed suit. So let's just hit these next 2 shorts.
By charging stations, and hello to the future. Norway just leveled up, introducing the world's first wireless charging road. Yep, heard that right. But it's like Wi-Fi, but for your car. The 100-meter stretch of magic powered by Electron Wireless lets electric vehicles charge while driving. No more plugins.
What if your car could charge while driving?
Yeah, that guy's content was... He made his music too loud. But solar highways, solar roadways, which is a concept that was brought up, like, I think damn near 10 years ago at this point, was the idea that solar panels could be used as the material for roads, and that they could serve multiple purposes, to include sending messages, interfacing with like a heads-up display on your car, but also engaging in charging processes as well for EVs. So the novel solution that Norway came up with is that the strip is actually in the center of the lane of the road, and that it emanates? Yeah, it emanates the energy into the battery supply of the EV itself, the electric vehicle. So that is an interesting and novel concept. Let's see what more we got on this.
In Norway, it's already happening. New electric roads in Trondheim use wireless tech under the asphalt to power EVs on the move. No stops, no plugs. It's clean, smart, and set to span 1,000 plus kilometers by 2030. Wow. The road is the charger now. Follow for more future-ready innovations.
Oh, damn it. So it looks like instead of it being truly wireless, it looks like there was some sort of device. This is the longer video, so let's see if they break that down.
The land of the midnight sun is filled with mountains, glaciers, fjords, and electric vehicles. A lot of them. The Scandinavian country boasts the highest EV adoption rate in the world. More than 82% of new car sales were electric vehicles last year, and that number goes up to over 90% if you include plug-in hybrids.
Our goal is that all new cars by 2025 will be zero-emission vehicles.
Oh, wow. So this was a year ago, no less. Okay. That's fine. This is a year ago, so this isn't going to talk about the roads, but the roads are a direct result of this investment. So we got 8 minutes. We'll do a few minutes of this. We might jump around in it. But I think this is going to be the story of that pathway to going from fossil fuels to electric, which we should follow.
We think we're going to reach that goal.
In the U.S., a measly 7.6% of new car sales were electric in 2023, up from 5.9% in 2022. In the world's largest auto market, China, 24% of new car sales were EVs in 2023. Norway's capital, Oslo, is also electrifying its ferries, buses, semi-trucks, and even construction equipment.
All public transportation within the end of this year will be zero emission in the city.
Gas pumps and parking meters are being replaced by chargers. It's an electric utopia of the future.
What is this?
Welcome to my man cave.
So how has Norway's grid been able to handle all those EVs? A lot of hydropower.
Electric cars is maybe a third of the price of gasoline because we have close to 100% hydropower. It's cheap, it's available and renewable, so that's a big advantage.
It definitely
The rapid expansion
is.
certainly hasn't been perfect.
And here's the
There
thing.
are some side effects
okay,
that
I'm going to wax a little nerdy here, so bear with me. We're going to do Professor Ronan. Okay, all right. So the thing about hydropower, much like solar power, it is everywhere all at once on planet Earth, okay? And the thing about hydropower is it's typically considered clean energy. But what about the turbines that run on gasoline and use oils for lubricants and all this? Okay. Not arguing that there's still some elements of fossil fuel or needing to synthesize things to make it purely green, but to the grandest basic scheme of things, you put in a hydroelectric dam on a major swath of water, and just the current itself, nothing even crazy, just the water itself flowing will generate electricity, which is why hydro turbines, and where is this, Norway? Norway is, I think, the top one, which is a very coastal country. It is definitely time, yes. If we build more of these hydroelectric dams along our coasts, we could literally offset the entire burden of our electrical grids, not just on the coast, on whichever coast we built it on, but for the whole country, because ocean currents are just that much bigger, that much more vast, that much more powerful. It makes the conversion rate of hydropower, especially ocean current power, I believe, don't quote me, but I am almost positive, is 6 times greater than that of a windmill. And the conversion of wind power, per se, not one hydroelectric dam is only 6 times better than a windmill, right? Because that would be insane. No. The conversion of a turbine turning versus a windmill turning, the water does 6 times better. Now, we have rivers, as we saw. We have rivers all across the East Coast and somewhat on the West Coast, or on the west side of the country. But we also have all of these coasts and across even the Gulf of Mexico. So we could 100% emulate this, is what I'm getting at. And it is a very exciting prospect for our future energy needs to invest in hydroelectric dams or ocean current water power.
To observe. We are pushing cars basically on the public, so there's been an increase in the total amount of cars bought. We want the change, but maybe not at this pace of this volume.
So how did Norway pull off such a high EV adoption rate? And what can the US learn from the country? We flew across the globe to meet with experts, government officials, and locals to find out.
All right, after this, we'll probably have to wrap up.
We flew into Oslo Airport and picked up our electric rental car.
I'm here picking up my rental car, and I've never seen so many electric cars.
My last year, followed by the Volkswagen ID4 and the Skoda Enyaq.
All zero-emission electric cars, they have license plates that starts with E, so it's always easy to spot them.
California has the highest EV adoption rate in the US. 21.5% of new car sales were electric in 2023, a figure that has doubled in the past 2 years. But
That's
Norway
pretty cool.
made California look like it was in the dark ages. There are chargers everywhere. The streets are quiet in Oslo. The air is pleasantly free of fumes.
There's been a noticeable improvement to the air quality in the city?
Yeah, it is. So around 20% reduction of local pollution.
It was actually noticeable when a gas-powered car sputtered by. We did find a few people who still drove gas-powered cars. Some couldn't afford to buy a new car, and others still couldn't get past range anxiety for long trips, despite the abundance of chargers.
I need to have a Land Rover because I'm going to the mountain.
Well, this is obviously a rich middle-class woman, like, has the same tan as Trump. So, of course, she needs the gas-guzzling Range Rover.
That's a little bit too long for the electric car, because I also have electric car for use in city, but not for mountain.
But most people we spoke with...
Okay, I guess we're not going to get to the nitty-gritty there. Suffice to say, when I was in Scotland last year, there was a distinctly noticeable difference in the air quality, the sound pollution in the cities and all that, because they too were very electric-minded in their vehicles. And honestly, I don't know why, I just don't understand why we wouldn't want to breathe cleaner air. But again, it goes back to capitalist propaganda. You need your big F-150 Ford lifted truck with your truck nuts on the back, rolling coal. Otherwise, women will never look at you. Give us $80,000, even though you make $30,000 at best. You know, again, it's marketing, it's capitalism, it's propaganda. And we are so centered around needing gasoline and gas-powered cars, we aren't even looking at mass transit anymore, let alone transit rail. So what we need is a societal shift in acceptance of what transportation even is and its impact in our societies and our communities, let alone our environment. Which brings us to the end. We need to do better. We need to build platforms. We need to encourage our communities to do and think and feel and demand better from our elected officials, from our companies, from our evil overlords. And failing that, we need to band together to achieve those goals. And that is why we are here today on stream. So, with that being said, thank you all for joining us. Thank you all for being a great audience. I appreciate you. Please like, share, spread the word about Samuel Ronan, 48th president. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. We will be front and center, 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. Eastern. And we're going to be doing Recap Thursdays, where we cover anything we may have missed or whatever breaking news is prevalent that day. So on that note, take care. Have a great night. President Ronan, out.